But again, I come down on if you create a system that treats people like a product, that treats people like cattle, can we really blame them for acting inhuman? What's up, y'all? I'm Deeg. These are my thoughts. Today, I'm intrigued to think about toxicity. A phenomenon we know all well and are all, well, those of us who have indulged in the multiplayer aspect of gaming in the 21st century know all too well. It's a term that practically needs no explanation. You know it when you see it, or perhaps when you feel it. But what got me thinking about toxicity today is actually a great article written by Chris Kaleiki, who is an ex-Blizzard World of Warcraft developer who specifically worked on game design. And I want to read it. Actually, I've already skimmed the article. I think it's pretty interesting, has some cool points. And I thought it would be fun today to just go through those, talk it out, and see what we think. So this is Chris Kaleiki's site on Substack. Actually, before we jump into this, I want to create a little bit of context for Chris. We have talked about Chris before on the channel. Specifically, we covered and reacted to his video that he did talking about why he chose to leave Blizzard and his experience at the company, which was interesting. He seems to be trying to spin himself up into either a consultant or just a social talking head type person in the gaming industry. And he has a lot to say, so I can see why he would choose to do that. But I want to find, here it is. Here's his portfolio. Here's Chris, charming chap, handsome gentleman, game designer, systems, combat, PvP, social, philosophy. Oh, okay. Chris is an American video game designer of 13 plus years of experience. His passions are online multiplayer competitive PvP games with a focus on combat and world building. He loves making spells. That's cool. If you ever played World of Warcraft, you may even have cast one of his spells at some point. He's recently left Blizzard Entertainment, exploring new opportunities. Okay. Let's see here. So he started in WoW on Wrath of the Lich King. Let's see, he did class design on some of the classes. The Wintergrass PvP zone design. Contributing. Okay, so this can mean anything. This means he helped get it done, not that this was his idea, his vision. So we're not going to place too much weight on the contributing stuff. Main class designer on the same classes for Cataclysm. That seems to be a common thread. Going into Mists. Monk class. More class design. Draenor, the Astran World PvP Zone, maybe continuing his experience working on Wintergrasp. Legion, here he took on some more, it looks like. The Honor Talent PvP system, which is still in the game today, or some version of it. Designed almost all of the Honor Talents. Ashamain Fall, Black Cold areas. That's something I'm not familiar with. I didn't play during Legion. World PvP quests. This is your World PvP quests are your thing, huh, Chris? Seething Shore Battleground. And then Battle for Azeroth, the War Mode system. So this is where you have opt-in PvP, as opposed to the old style of World of Warcraft, where you have PvP servers and PvE servers. It's like some of the PvP arenas. He worked on some of the old school battlegrounds and up-resing them. Epic Battlegrounds, one of my least favorite parts of World of Warcraft. And lastly, for Shadowlands, this is the World of Warcraft I have actually played. War mode content, Bastion area. Bastion's one of the open world maps. Shadow Priest overhaul, Monk Legend. So it looks like he moved off of doing class design. Really, with Mists and Warlords. Interesting. Hey, Pibble. How you doing, man? By the way, the RAM is rock steady, dude. Not a blip. Shout out to Pibble, who's helping me get more performance out of my rig. So, okay. Chris's experience in World of Warcraft started doing class design and moved into doing some PvP. and zone type design of some kind. And here are a bunch of the spells that he worked on regarding all the class design. Nothing warrior here, which is the only skill set in World of Warcraft I'm familiar with, but maybe there's some cool stuff for here if you know one of these classes. Okay, some more foundationals. Favorite games: Ocarina of Time, Dota, WoW, Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne, Smash Brothers Melee. 2 games here I have a ton of actually, I have a lot of respect for all these games, but 2 games that resonate with me. Ocarina of Time. For me, I played Ocarina of Time, and when it came out, was it 97 or 98 that game came out? I would have been 15 years old, roughly. Very, very foundational to my myself as a young gamer. Smash Melee. I'm more of a Smash 64 guy, but Melee was a fantastic game too. I love the Smash Brothers franchise. At least I did back in the day. I love discussing video game philosophy, but he also has a passion for philosophy in general. Favorite philosopher is Epictetus. Oh man, I'm sorry guys, I'm rabbit trailing. I'm gonna look at this. He's an INTP. Actually, this is how I test as well. Interesting. I once changed the Warlock spell Siphon Life in a patch, apparently triggering Vitalik Buterin to quit the game, inspiring him to create the Ethereum coin. Okay. As a teen, he founded the Pokemon fan site Bulbagarden, which after having stopped working on it, turned into Bulbapedia, most popular Pokemon resource in the web today. Okay. Let's just have a quick poke at his favorite philosopher. I think this might be very useful. I just have a funny feeling. NS Operative Pibble, the RAM work you did for him also restored Planetside corruption issues and blue screens. Oh, that's amazing. Kai, am I secretly doing an autobiographical show? No, I'm not trying to. I believe context is very important, though, right? We've talked about this before. You need a lot of context to understand anything. And I want to read a Chris Kaleiki article he did on toxicity. And he has all these tantalizing little bits about him that are out there that I think just warrant a moment of, like let's agitate them and put them into the air so we can smell them as we're reading the article. That's my thought. Every stream is autobiographical with Deegums. Big true. There's truth there. What can I say? Make content about what you know, right, guys? The mind of Deeg, that's a horrifying thing. Let's not dwell on that idea. Okay. Epictetus was a Greek he's a Stoic philosopher. Okay. This I can see this. Born a slave, blah, blah, blah. Epictetus taught that philosophy is a way of life, not just a theory. It's a little small for y'all to read, isn't it? That's a bit better. Taught that philosophy is a way of life, not just a theoretical discipline. To Epictetus, all external events are beyond our control. We should accept whatever happens calmly and dispassionately. However, individuals are responsible for their own actions, but they can examine and control through rigorous self-discipline. Whoa, I like that. I like the sound of that. That sounds very ungamer-like. I mean, true gamers blame all problems on games, right? Are people playing them the wrong way? And for those of you all who don't know what Stoic philosophy is, it's a philosophy of personal ethics informed by a system of logic and its views on the natural world. Well, that's not very helpful. Path to happiness or blessedness is found in accepting the moment as it presents itself, by not allowing oneself to be controlled by the desire for pleasure or by fear of pain, by using one's mind to understand the world and to do one's part in nature's plan, and by working together and treating others fairly and justly. Okay. They're especially known, Stoics are, for teaching that virtue is the only good. For all human beings, those external things such as health, wealth, and pleasure are not good or bad themselves, but have value as material for virtue to act upon. Many Stoics emphasize that because virtue is, such as Seneca and Epictetus, here's our guy that Chris likes, emphasize that because virtue is sufficient for happiness, a sage would be emotionally resilient to misfortune. This belief is similar to the meaning of the phrase Stoic calm, though the phrase does not include the radical ethical Stoic views. that only a sage can be considered truly free, and that all moral corruptions are equally vicious. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully y'all found that interesting. I did. Chris Kaleiki the Stoic. Kind of funny his name is Epictetus. Is there another philosopher named Ponocrates? uh, that's gonna be like my next next time I need an alias in a game. That's what I'll use. All right. Well, here is the article, boys and girls. Chris Kaleiki, the war on toxicity will fail. We build games to bring players together. But what happens when they don't get along? Zero tolerance bans, AI assisted moderation, and even player run tribunals all continue to fail. But why? Okay. So we know Chris has been working on World of Warcraft for 13 years. He quit for some reason, and he likes Stoic philosophy. We can infer that his perspective here is going to perhaps be targeted towards people like him, other designers. So we're not designers, I'm not. But maybe there's something we can glean from this. One of the things that I did, in addition to reading this article, is I also listened through some of the Clubhouse chat that Chris did with Kevin Jordan and some other folks about this topic. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on that towards the end of this. But yeah, that's what we'll do. Let's just read the article, shall we? On a fall afternoon in Plymouth, England, a 46-year-old unemployed father of three, Mark Bradford, was letting off steam playing Call of Duty when his character was killed. The killer? A 13-year-old boy and loose friend who happened to live nearby. As teenage boys tend to do, he jeered and mocked Bradford on voice chat over and over, causing him to log off in anger. But when Bradford disconnected, he didn't just rage quit. He drove over to the boy's house and strangled him. The boy's mother had to intervene, tearing Bradford off her son, leaving the boy with scratches and reddening to the neck. Later, when asked what caused Bradford to lose his cool, he remarked, "I'd been playing the whole day, and he was baiting me and just would not shut up. He went on, and I just lost it. I hold my hands up. I lost the plot. In a moment of madness, I went around to his house. I didn't know what I was going to do." What point are you going to make here, Chris? Any gamer who's played online, multiplayer competitive games can resonate with the teenage boy or even Bradford. Can we? Can we, Chris? When I was a kid, my younger brother and I would play Mortal Kombat against each other. And I learned that if I abused Raiden's torpedo ability a little too much, my brother would explode and torpedo me IRL. Torpedo you, huh? Today, my brother is, like Bradford, a father of three, but by all accounts would be the father you'd hope your child or sibling to be. A little bit of brotherly love in the house. Love it. His behavior as a kid was nothing unique or abnormal, but today it would be called something gamers in the industry like to call toxic. Okay. Toxicity is dangerous, says Wired magazine, and defines it as including sexual harassment, hate speech, threats of violence, doxing, which is publicizing others' private info, spamming, flaming, strong emotional statements meant to elicit negative reactions, griefing, using the game in unintended ways to harass others, as in violating the unspoken code of conduct, and intentionally inhibiting the performance of one's own team, and points out that the perps tend to be younger male and high in emotional reactivity and impulsivity. Who knew? Plus context. Let's see what this link goes to. Toxicity. Got Wired. 1 year of Wired for $10. You know, this is something I would actually do if I was guaranteed to know they were not going to send me mail for the rest of my life trying to get me to buy more. That's what these magazines do, though. How long is this article? A little too long for us to read as a sidebar. Maybe we'll go back to it. But let's continue with Chris's take first. Toxicity in games has been a prime focus in the games industry for the past decade, spurring over 180 game studios and publishers, including Blizzard Entertainment, Riot Games, EA, and Ubisoft, to band together under a coalition called the Fair Play Alliance, whose vision is a world where games are free of harassment, discrimination, and abuse, and where players can express themselves through play. It sounds like corporate diversity initiatives. The Disruption and Harms in Online Gaming framework provide a detailed and comprehensive catalog of what we know about problematic in-game conduct today. The goal... I was reading that. The goal is to empower game developers, publishers, community managers, and anyone working on online games or gaming services with greater knowledge and tools to support player well-being and foster healthier, more welcoming gaming spaces around the world. Every player deserves a fair, safe, and inclusive space to play. So this is for developers. The Fair Play Alliance is a global coalition of gaming professionals and companies committed to developing quality games. Envision a world where games are free of harassment, blah, 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 blah. Our principles. Intentionally evolve. Okay. It's not really clear what this alliance actually does. Nice badge, though. Nice intent. Continuing. Some more info. The Fair Play Alliance is co-founded by Kimberly Vole, who holds a PhD in computer science, but also a degree in cognitive science. Before founding the FPA, she worked at Riot Games for over 5 years within the player behavior team. Riot has been on the front lines of the war on toxicity and is regarded as the origin for the term, at least in an official professional sense. Sounds right to me. That could be right. Yeah, Riot knows about toxicity, definitely. Anyway, but the term has been controversial for its implication that the player is intending to be toxic when bad player behavior at its root is actually a lot more complicated. True. Indeed, even the frequently asked questions on FPA's website backs away from even using the term. You won't find the word toxic anywhere within the Fair Play Alliance's website. Interesting. The FPA suggests game developers adopt a disruption and harms online gaming framework. The framework, which is 48 pages long, oh boy, in its PDF format, suggests that developers adopt penalty and reporting systems like the ones you see in so many online games today, but admits that an increasing attempt to moderate and control behavior is not a sustainable path. But yet the industry persists on that front, increasingly adding new systems of control and moderation in an effort to realize the FPA's goal of a world free of harassment. Pibble, drop on the science, respect. But as a game system designer of over 13 years, here's the real stuff. Here's the real thesis. And a competitive multiplayer online gamer of at least twice that amount of time, I can tell you, the FPA is right that the war is unwinnable. It's Chris's belief that toxicity or disruptive is misunderstood and isn't just a player problem, but a developer problem. Okay. Chris has a real flair for the dramatic, I think. But I respect that. I really do. Okay. What do y'all think of this headline? To be toxic is to be human. I have a confession to make. I've been toxic in games before. As a teen playing Warcraft 3, I used to shit talk the other team, especially when they would use cheesy tactics to try to tower rush me. In StarCraft, I would sometimes drag out the game by hiding some of my building pieces, causing the other player to explore every pixel of the map to find out where my floating command center was hiding. Sometimes it was because I felt the match wasn't fair, but other times I did it just for fun. Looking back, I'm not really proud of it, but I also don't think I'm a sociopath or a toxic person either. I don't know normal. I have to ask you guys what you think about this. Because I fall on a spectrum of toxicity that I think goes pretty far in the opposite direction. And I have a fairly non-confrontational, what shall we call it? Personality, a non-confrontational personality, which is part of what makes me an easy person to talk to, because I am just good at dealing with situations that are uncomfortable sometimes, in a way that's not confrontational. I've had people be toxic to me in online games many, many times, and I've never felt like I've been able to understand them. I'm not really sure I understand why someone would do something like this for fun. This is what you call sadism, when you do something to experience the pleasure from someone else's pain. And to do it without being able to see the reaction of the person. Ah, man, that's hard for me to understand. This is just me, my bias. The first one I get, where you're expressing frustration. People using cheesy tactics like trying to tower rush. Yes, like if you're upset, sure. But I guess what I wonder is when I look at this hiding his buildings to drag out the time of the game without affecting the result, is he also acting out some kind of form of being upset here? Is getting back at the world what makes that fun for him? I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. Pibble says every human can be toxic, but to be just toxic is a problem. Yeah, right. The attribution, right? Someone is portraying a certain kind of behavior versus someone is this way. It's a very different thing. Like this person is being loud versus this is a loud person. Just because something toxic doesn't mean they are toxic. I'm not even sure calling a person a toxic person is a useful starting point for a discussion. Kai, it's creating your own win condition to make yourself feel better about losing the initial one. Interesting take, Kai. I think you might have a good point there. Let's keep that in mind as we continue reading. Also, I just want to call out this last sentence. This looks like exactly the kind of... I don't know Chris, okay? And I have no reason to suspect he's anything but neurotypical. But I think this is the kind of sentence a sociopath might write. In my non-professional opinion, I just got to call that out, and I think it's funny. And if he ever sees this, I hope he laughs too. Anyway, the dirty truth is that the data, which you'll only see from the inside, shows that by far the majority of players are considered toxic at least once by another player, and the majority still have been toxic multiple times. So to brand someone as toxic is a bit dehumanizing and isn't helpful when thinking about disruptive behavior. Agreed. So what you only see from the inside, he's talking about the kind of internal metrics that you see as a game developer. Privileged private information that if you are in the loop of understanding the way these player behaviors work, you might get to see. So let me just reread this again and think about it. Data shows by far the majority of players are considered toxic at least once by another player. Considered toxic at least once by another player. So this is a system that relies on the assessment of any person on any other person. I think we can say that this isn't necessarily the best read about someone being toxic, but it's an interesting data point. And the majority have been toxic multiple times. Worth mentioning, another context setter for Chris. He's talking about PvP in World of Warcraft. That's what he's talking about here. He's talking about arenas. He's talking about battlegrounds. And maybe world PvP, but probably not. And these are both game systems that are done via matchmaking that uses some kind of internal ranking that determines your skill to match you with other people of similar skill. It doesn't match you based on geography, it doesn't match you based on personality, it doesn't match you based on anything like that. It's just based on your ability to win. And I think one of the points we're going to get to later in this discussion, which I find particularly interesting, is the effect that matchmaking has on the player cultures that can sometimes emanate these kinds of toxic results. But anyway, there's a great video here. I'm going to play it. Let me make sure my audio is set up right first, though. Boom, boom. NS operative. WoW's MMR is massively abused. Joke too. Yeah. MMR is an interesting topic anywhere it exists, right? Pibble, ELO rating, or some variant thereof, right? Kai. Oh, sorry, I didn't see what you said before, Kai, that you've done this many times yourself, creating your own win condition when you're frustrated. Well, I think that there's actually a lot of... there can be a lot of acceptance in that kind of behavior. Like, I see a hint of, like, the Stoic philosophy in that. Of, like, okay, I'm outnumbered 4-1 at this fight. If I can get a couple of headshot kills in one death, I'm going to call that a win. Like, that just seems like a pretty enlightened thing to do. But if your goal is to make someone rage quit, that might be toxic. Okay. Why are people so nasty by the school of life?
It happens pretty much all the time. A small jabbing comment, a joke at our expense amidst a group of old friends, a line of sarcasm, a sneering assessment, a provocative comment on the internet. These things hurt a lot, more than we're ever allowed to really admit.
This graphic's painful for me to look at. I don't like that.
We search for explanations, but anything satisfying and soothing is usually hard to come by.
Like this guy's voice? Let's be real.
The casual inhumanity that circulates all around us, and suspect that perhaps it's we who are, somewhere deep down, to blame for falling victim to it. Here is what we should actually think, a truth as basic as it is inviolable. Other people have been nasty because they are in pain.
Boom. I had nothing to add. It's just so true.
The only reason they have hurt
it's exactly what you were saying, Kai.
us is because they are, somewhere deep inside, hurting themselves. They've been catty and derogatory.
Here's Kai right here.
And foul because they are not well.
Much love, brother.
However outwardly confident they may look, however virile and robust they may appear, their actions are all the evidence we need that they cannot in truth be in a good place. No one solid would ever need to do this. The thought is empowering because nastiness so readily humiliates and reduces us. It turns us into the small, damaged party. Without meaning to, we begin to imagine our bully as potent and even somehow impressive. Their vindictiveness demeans us. But the psychological explanation of evil at once reverses the power dynamic. It's you who has no need to belittle, who is in fact the larger, steelier, more forceful party. You who feels so defenseless, who is all along actually in power. The thought restores justice. It promises that the guilty party has, after all, been punished along the way. You might not have been able to right the scales personally. They left the room already, or kept the conversation flowing too fast for you to protest, and in any case, you're not the sort to make a fuss. But a kind of punishment has been delivered cosmically already, somewhere behind the scenes. Their suffering, of which their need to inflict suffering on others is simply incontrovertible evidence, is all you need to know that they have been served their just deserts. You move from being a victim of crime to being an audience to an abstract.
I love this, actually. This is really great. So there's that fantastic quote that I love and have read over and over again, that I still can't remember it. So I'm going to do what I always do, which is when I try to call it up and look it up. This bad boy. Now remember this? Baruch Spinoza, I've labored carefully not to mock, lament, or execrate human actions, but to understand them. How can you understand something if you can't observe it? Moving from being a victim to being an observer in the audience. I love this metaphor. It's great.
Form of justice. They may not be apologizing to you, but they haven't escaped freely either. Their sulfur is proof they are paying a heavy price. This isn't merely a pleasant story. A person who feels at ease with themselves can have no need to distress others. We don't have the energy to be cruel unless and until we are in inner torment. Along the way, the theory gives hints at how we might, when we've recovered from the blow, deal with those who dealt it. The temptation is to get stern and cruel back, but the only way to diminish the vicious cycle of hate is, of course, to address its origins, which lie in suffering. There is no point punching back. We must, as the old prophets always told us, learn to look upon our enemies with sorrow, pity, and, when we can manage it, a forgiving kind of love.
Not all enemies deserve love, but knowing that behavior like this comes from pain is very useful. Kai, no, I'm nasty because you're enlightened. Exactly. Okay. Let's continue our exploration here. Kaleiki goes on. When you dig further into the reasons why someone may be a dick online, it really turns out to be more about them than it is about you. Imagine someone who works at Subway making sandwiches from 9 to 5, comes home from a stressful week of being yelled at for putting mayo on someone's footlong when they said no mayo. I'm imagining it right now, Chris. Trying to let off some steam in PUBG. Maybe their teammate that they are matched with isn't on their A game tonight, and that ticks this guy off. So he says some mean things or engages in friendly fire. While it doesn't excuse the behavior, the point is to understand these situations happen and are normal. What is this? Kai has actually worked at Subway. This whole article is actually about you. Look over your shoulder, Chris. Kai, is Chris waiting there for you, secretly documenting your life? Okay. I gotta take an aside to watch this video. I don't know what this is, but this looks way too good to skip. Xbox Live original promotional commercial. Oh, this is gonna be good.
I am now loading Acclaim's Revolt. I will soon experience complete oneness with an interconnected global community of
This is
game
me, right here.
warriors.
This is me.
I can feel the energy flowing through the high-speed Ethernet cables.
Dude, who are you talking to? Are we gonna play or what?
Patience, Grasshopper. One must learn before one can dominate.
Forget that, let's play!
Are you ready, Grasshopper?
I was born ready. My name is Chuck. You cool, dumb master?
Whoa.
You see, we're already signed up. It was
guy lives
way
near
easy,
me.
just took up. It was way easy, just took a couple. You see, we're already signed up.
One 334 Northeast Main Street in Seattle. I'm gonna dox this guy.
You see, we're already signed up. It was way easy, just took a couple of minutes and we're good to go. Once you've signed up, you never have to do it again. Plus, you get to pick your gamer tag, you know, your online identity. Mine's Dark Master. I play every game as Dark Master, and people are starting to recognize who I am.
Oh no, not Dark Blister.
Yep, I'm getting kind of a reputation for my superior skills. Anyway, this is the matchmaking screen. You can choose Quick Match, which will hook you up with any available gamer, or you can be more selective and use Optimatch. Optimatch lets you find the right game at your level or style, or you can host a match where you set all the criteria. For your first race, let's just jump in and do a quick match. Hit it, Grasshopper.
My name is Chuck.
Okay, Chuck. Pick a car.
It's so easy. Well, what's up with this?
Oh, well, this is the lobby. See how there are all these people hanging out? We have Thrasher, Roadhog, there's Oil Slick.
Oh, cool.
Cool. What's so cool, Dork Master?
Dude, they can hear me, and I can hear them.
That's the coolest thing about Xbox Live, the voice. Grasshopper's got his Xbox communicator, and so does Roadhog and Oil Slick. And anyone else who's playing can use one too.
Whoa, did you hear that guy, Oil Slick? He sounds like a good racer.
That's another thing that rocks about voice. Voice masking. There's this thing called voice masking.
You can change your voice
To fit any game or mood.
What do you think about that?
I've got to get this at my house. How do you do it?
All about broadband, my man. You gotta have a high-speed internet service.
Like DSL or cable?
Exactly. You're learning much, Grasshopper.
So these people, they can hear me in real time.
We can hear you, fool.
Yeah, how about shutting up and starting the race?
All right, let's go.
You stink, Dark Master. My grandma drives faster than you.
You're mine, Oil Slick.
We are gonna so beat you.
That dude's a jerk.
I heard that you are so going down.
Grass, press the mute button.
No, that mutes everybody. I got a better idea. Let's mute that oil spew instead. Hey, Dirk, can you tell your audience what I'm gonna do here?
What Oil Slick doesn't know is that we're using the handy player mute button, available only on Xbox Live, to shut him up.
You guys are so pathetic. You chaff my...
Gotta love that feature. And that's the race. Check out the results screen. It shows everyone's standings in the race. Hey, Roadhog's cool.
Dark
and we're the
Master,
opponent. Let's add him to our
last
friends list.
place.
Well, how do I do it?
Oh, the friends list is a really cool way to keep track of the people you'd like to play against. When we add Roadhog to my list, he'll show up on my list every time I go live.
Okay, so how do we do it?
Go to the players list
How long is this?
and send a friend request. Now Roadhog will get an invitation to be a
All
topper
right.
is out of the way. I can make a game just the way I like it. This game type, Roadhog. I'm gonna send him an invitation to race with me. We'll see if he accepts.
Dark Master, I accept your invitation. You're going down.
And there's Where's My Car. He's a buddy of mine too. Looks like he's playing NFL Fever. Check this out. I can invite him while he's playing another game. All right, now watch as I send him a game invite. There it is. He checks out his friends list, see who's sending him a friendly challenge.
Sweet. Invite from Dark Loser. It's like candy from a baby.
And he happily accepts an invite from one of his good buddies. Now all he needs to do is swap out his game disc and we'll be ready to roll.
Are you ladies ready to roll?
Ready when you are.
Sayonara, guys. I've been waiting for you at the finish line. All right, if I can just inch around. And yeah!
Woo! Losers! I win!
All right, that's a wrap. Nice take. That
Whoa,
looked
whoa,
good.
check this out. #1 national leaderboard, baby, yeah! whoa, guys, where you going? Come on. You saw that, right? Number 1, baby. Yeah, number 1.
Number 1, baby. All right. I'm not sure if that was worth the trip. This isn't satire. It seemed to be part satire, Kai. I'm not real sure. Why did Chris include this? I guess he's going to start to talk about the way matchmaking came into gaming, which is actually pretty cool because it's not a perspective a lot of people who play games online today have. The world of online gaming pre-matchmaking was a lot smaller. Okay. Continuing on. It's only recent that the industry has been clutching their pearls, as the kids say, over problematic player behavior. As recently as 2002, Microsoft poked fun at the competitive culture. Is this a link to that video? Yes. Like many things now, what was normal 18 years ago today is cringe. Social norms, or what society views as acceptable conduct, are always shifting, and oftentimes we can't come to an agreement over what these norms should be. In fact, oftentimes developers or behavior scientists and players can't agree with what is toxic and what's not. Okay, a lot of things packed into these 2 sentences. I'm going to reread them. Social norms, or what society views as acceptable conduct, are always shifting. And oftentimes we can't come to an agreement over what these norms should be. Oftentimes developers, why behavior scientists? Why is this in here? And players can't agree with what's toxic and what's not. Yeah. So the shifting definition of over time and between people of what is considered toxic and what's good, what's bad, of course. So I don't know if Chris made his point here, just to say to be toxic is to be human, with this little section of the article. I'm not sure I agree with that, or I'm not sure it's fundamental enough to include it as like a given in the argument, but interesting anecdotes. Continuing on, toxicity comes from design. The price for matchmaking. In 2002, Bungie was riding high with its hit game Halo Combat Evolved, earning the coveted Game of the Year title and universal acclaim. Although already massively popular at LAN parties, Bungie sought to streamline the experience for the new Xbox Live service by introducing what they called matchmaking. Matchmaking would break apart from the traditional approach of having a list of servers or lobbies, where players would choose from a list of different games managed by a creator. And instead, the game would put players together in a match based on their geographic location and skill level. This proved to be a massive success, so much so matchmaking is ubiquitous today as the de facto method for online multiplayer gaming. What's this link for? When Halo 2 invaded planet Earth. Ooh, this is a cool looking article. Maybe read this later. Oh my god. Y'all could have told me that I had the thing switched off. Okay. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. So yeah, here's an example of an internet lobby. You can see powered by GameSpy. GameSpy was the predominant server, the software people used to actually find these game servers, because game servers back in the day weren't hosted and created, generally speaking, by the game studio. They were hosted and managed by gamers. An example for me would be playing Half-Life 1 mods back in the day. TCP/IP emulation. Pibble is speaking a language here. Where's your high school's local server? Yes, having that Quake server that you ran in the in the computer center at your high school. I had that experience. I remember playing Quake Deathmatch with the lights turned off. I don't know who we thought we were fooling at the time, but we got away with it. I remember going to LAN parties when I was in high school and having local games of playing all kinds of stuff with friends. And high school and college, one of my formative gaming experiences was playing Team Fortress Classic, which is a capture the flag shooter, where every single server and every single gameplay interaction you had was something hosted by somebody outside of Valve. Valve had nothing to do with the communities that sprang up around Team Fortress Classic, unlike TF2. That's a little bit different, I think. And that forced people, if they wanted to have competition, to make their own leagues. It forced you, if you wanted to have a server with a certain kind of attitude, you created it, or you tried to make it happen by having you and your friends all go to one place and kind of create the culture you wanted. It's interesting kind of duality, because although it was a lot harder to actually get into these games back in the day before matchmaking, once you actually got into them, they were a lot less sweaty. Let's see what Chris says. But little did Bungie know that they would pay a price in exchange for the convenience and streamlined experience. On forums and news groups, players became skeptical of the integrity of matchmaking system. Players believed they were being unfairly placed in games alongside players who weren't as skilled as them, and worse players began what was beginning to be known as trolling other players, sending them flaming messages making sure they knew they sucked or their mom was fat. Classics. The age of toxicity had begun. Let's see. Lincoln 6 Echo says, I'm going to travel back in time, find a dinosaur egg, bring it back to the future, sit on it until it hatches, raise it, love it, then watch it mangle your lifeless and helpless carcass while I touch myself inappropriately. That is a creative rage tell right there. Planet Man can aspire to that. You know, I think that after reading that, I'm going to make a new channel points redeem when I stream Planetside. That's going to be not just send a compliment to my killer, but send an eloquent rage tell. Yeah, I think we're going to do that. I've been inspired. Hey, Lanzer, how's it going? But the trolling and flaming didn't keep developers from pushing forward with matchmaking. Just 8 years later, Blizzard would release StarCraft 2, and to much dismay of the players, it didn't have chat rooms or lobbies, but a new feature, quick play, or matchmaking. And similar to Halo 2, StarCraft 2 players would question the integrity of the matchmaking. Frost says, if you like SBMM in video games, that says a lot about you. You have no drive, no confidence, no resilience, no work ethic, and probably won't make it anywhere in life. Well, that's quite a condemnation. What is SBMM? SBMM video games. Skill-based matchmaking. Okay. Yeah, fine. Lancer, I'm doing great. We're talking about toxicity today. Specifically about an article that Chris Kaleiki, an ex-Blizzard developer, wrote. Yeah. Yeah, you got it, Zybit Nat. The elephant in the room. Today, most game studios employ dedicated matchmaking designers and engineers. Although much progress has been made to improve the matchmaker by very well-meaning and smart people, including one of his favorites, Josh Menke, it is still distrusted and often the centerpiece of player angst. But the matchmaker can't take all the blame because most of it is amplified by something also seemingly innocent: player-ranked rewards. So I can relate to this a little bit. I do my damnedest to not expose myself to skill-based matchmaking systems, because for me, being the best player in a video game is not a currency that I really care about accumulating very much anymore. But I was playing World of Warcraft Arenas, and because at the time I was playing, it was one of the best ways to get gear for raiding in Shadowlands. in the 3-month tour I did through Shadowlands, which, by the way, was fun. I really enjoyed it. But at the time, there was a high incentive for me to get a certain rating in arenas. And the rage that I felt when I felt that I had been cheated out of having a fair match by being paired up against someone with a higher rating than me and still being penalized for losing. Ooh, bad feeling, man. Pibble only cares about clock speeds and timings. That's the only matchmaking you care about, huh? And God bless you for it. Who made this? We create codes of conduct. We mute, we ban, nothing works. What do we do? Game design. What does this go to? I think there needs to be some more context around this graphic. Okay, but we don't have any. MG, Mr. Greg. It's me all along, pulling the strings. Part of the system's design of competitive games is to create a progression path for the player to maintain engagement. Although PvP games usually garner less total number of players than PvE games, the engagement, or how long they'll play the game in its lifetime, is much higher. Part of the alchemy is crafting engagement for the player is a good progression path. The idea is to create a story for the player where they begin in bronze, get better at the game, and progress to silver, then eventually to gold, platinum, etc. This rank design is usually considered part of matchmaking, since matchmaking also includes a bell curve of distribution of player skill. In other words, ELO, which comes from chess. But what's unique about online games and the bell curve is that players are rewarded for their skill. What's unique about online games and the bell curve is that players are rewarded for their skill. I wouldn't use the word unique here, but I think I get what he's trying to say. The designer manifests a power hierarchy, the rank progression, and artificial scarcity of rewards kept behind ranks. It's a lot of syllables. Okay, here's an example of some ranked rewards in Rocket League. Although it's traditional to reward for higher skill like in sports or the Olympics, athletes have years of education, training, and coaching and sportsmanship. Joe, who plays PUBG after work, probably less so. Or that guy at the top of the article who choked the kid down the street. In competitive games, players usually opt to play in groups rather than solo, if it's even offered at all. Is that true? Solo play, like 1v1 ranked in StarCraft, is notoriously hardcore, and players can quickly feel their inadequacy and drop out, but in group matches, it's less clear. Dunning-Kruger is in full effect, and most players don't blame themselves, but instead either the matchmaker for putting them with, in their view, lesser skilled players, or worse, blame the other players directly for their loss. Dunning-Kruger, of course, being a couple of researchers who studied the effect of people's self-perception of their competence, which can be remarkably high at low skill levels, low competence levels, and then drops off precipitously the more people actually know. So what he's saying here is that people overestimate their skill when they're not very good, and rather than placing blame on themselves because they overestimate their ability, they place blame on externalities. I'm not sure I understand this first sentence. Hopefully he'll come back and clarify this. Because my perception is that when it comes to multiplayer, most people prefer to mitigate reliance on other people as much as possible. Anyway, it is Chris's belief that most online toxicity today comes from the designer gating extrinsic rewards behind a rank that the player is desperately trying to achieve, and in most cases, will never achieve. Ooh, interesting. The truth is that the vast majority of players will never obtain the highest rank in a competitive game, and their ranking on the distribution curve is borderline genetic. As in, they were born to have a certain place? Let's use a more specific word here, Chris. So now imagine Joe who comes home, tries out to play Rocket League the night before the season ends, is 50 points away from getting gold, but his teammate via the matchmaker missed the last goal in the final seconds of the match. What are the expected outcomes of this situation? If the player demonstrates toxic behavior after the match, is it just the player's fault or the designer who created the situation? It's interesting that it's vogue to blame Facebook and social media for its effect on social capital, but game designers get a pass. Okay. I'm starting to put together Chris's argument in my head here. It seems like generally he's trying to steer the conversation away from player accountability towards designer accountability. We'll see where he lands. But I still think player accountability is pretty fucking important. And I hope he acknowledges that fact. But yeah, what's the saying? Don't hate the player, hate the game. Most people in life have a difficult time overcoming short-term incentives for their behavior. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. And I think a lot of times that the social incentives that get codified in game systems are not thought through as well as they should be. Interesting title. Henry coming in with a light assault ban. I'm not even playing Planetside. So, okay, I owe you 34 non-light assault kills now. He wants an entire team with no light assault? Oh, man. Well, I mean, you can buy it. You got the channel points. It's a possibility. Theory crafting solutions. What are the solutions Chris has? Blue Pill Neo, just to be clear, toxic means the one attitude affects negatively others' experience. Yeah. Yeah. The definition that we're working with, Neo, is basically like what you think of as I guess Chris doesn't really specifically define this, but the way I would define toxicity would be perhaps negative behavior that is out of balance with the situation. Taking your shit out on others. Good way to put it. Like that. Pibble, toxic behavior is anything that poisons the relationship and could limit another person's growth. That's pretty broad. I gotta think about that, Pibble. Definitely some truth in there, though. Okay, let's continue the article. Again, if you're joining us late, this is by Chris Kaleiki, an ex-Blizzard World of Warcraft developer. A few years ago, I wrote a tweet storm on toxicity, MMR, and rank rewards. Although it had support, there was also skepticism on solutions. Is the solution really to remove the matchmaker and or remove ranked rewards? The formula has been massively successful and lucrative for online games, and it's unlikely that developers will give up on their cash cow no matter how much they dislike toxicity. So Chris is defining the matchmaking paradigm as a pillar of his discussion. That's where he wants to start the discussion. Not where I would choose to start the discussion, but I get that's where he wants to go. Let's have a look at this tweet storm. How long is it? That's pretty short. Okay. Henry can be pretty complex too. Like if you have high demands on yourself performance-wise, you end up projecting those values on people around you. Yep. Neo, Pibble, then okay, Pibble, then isn't stupidity toxic? MMO is the highest form of toxicity. That's a good question. If you act in a way that's toxic out of ignorance, is that okay? Or does toxicity require intent? That's a good question. I'm not going to answer. I'll let y'all think about it. Chris says, why the rise in toxicity in games? The game industry needs to take a step back and realize that we have tied MMR into all of our player progression systems, and I'm skeptical of its success. What makes a game fun? Positive experience. One important factor is an adequate challenge. That's why we have easy, normal, hard modes, etc. Dark Souls may be rewarding and enjoyable to you, but impossible and frustrating to your friend. This is especially true in competitive PvP games. This is why we have MMR, true skill, etc. Its purpose is to give you an adequate challenge, a fair match to maximize fun. At some point, we've turned the concept of MMR into an MMO-esque progression system in every game. Ranks, medals, cosmetics, in some cases power progression, items, and so on. What works in an MMO doesn't work in every game. This has turned out to be problematic. We've given players the expectation that they will become a diamond player if they just try hard enough. This is not true. The perception breeds toxicity, especially among team games where you can feel others are holding you back. Competitive spirit and achievements should be celebrated and honored in our games, but we as an industry need to develop new progression systems that are divorced from player skill if we wish to ultimately combat toxic behavior. I think this is really, really, really smart. I think that it's very fair to say that people are going to settle out on the bell curve in terms of their overall skill. And if you set out a progression path for people where there's an expectation of constant improvement, you're going to create frustration. You're going to design frustration into the experience. So I think that's really smart. I think he's right. He wrote this 2 years ago. Interesting. He's been stewing on this for a little while, clearly. So the tweet storm that he wrote, he says it had support. He was skeptical on there was skepticism about solutions. And he poses, is the solution really to remove the matchmaker and or remove rank rewards? So to go away from matchmaking, which by the way is something I'm going to talk about after we finish reading this, and remove rank rewards, I don't have a strong opinion about. So let's see what he has to say about how we can reduce toxicity without giving up on matchmaking. Oh, here's the wheelhouse for me. This is what got me excited to talk about this article. He's about to preach a message loud. It's one of my favorites. Player curated communities. Although skill-based matchmaking has been finding a game fast and convenient, it has dominated all other types of ways to play. In an era of Roblox, the metaverse, and democratization of gaming, what is this? Did he make this up? Define your terms, Chris. Giving player options and variety is increasingly important. Not all players want to play skill-based ranked, and not all players in ranked have the same values or goals. Some want to be let off steam and chill. Some want to play to win, and some are just trying to figure out what the hype is all about. In the dedicated server era, players could curate and craft different experiences in their own servers. No fancy AI moderation needed. It turns out players like having others to play with and be part of their community, and will maintain and police their own communities. I remember, man. I remember. Oh God, what is this? Important side note: when you do add other types of game modes, make sure they have some sort of progression. Okay, whatever. Dedicated server era. Oh, this is good. I like this. Check this out, guys. Quake, Half-Life, etc. So this era of gaming is right when I was getting into PC gaming. For me, I was a Nintendo dude. I was a Nintendo fanboy in elementary and middle school. Played the NES, the Super Nintendo, the N64 was my hype machine that I was so excited about. But I learned about PC gaming from my friends, and for Christmas of 1999, I was given Quake 3, Unreal Tournament, and Half-Life as gifts. And I put all three through the ringer. At the time, we had a dial-up modem, but that would get fixed in the next year or so. Category 1, the wacky gamer. Just wants to have fun and not focus on being pro or hardcore. Plays on Ice World sliding maps, rats, mini maps, etc. Happy gamer. Which one of these do you guys fit into? I see Pibble and Kai weighing in. I want to hear everyone weigh in. Which one of these do you think fits you the best? Stoner Zone just wants to replay what they know, zone out for 6 hours, and relax. Just relax, man. Plays DE Dust or Two Fort. 24/7 server. Happy gamer. Hardcore gamer. Grrr. Wants to get better. Wants people to contribute and follow rules of competition. Find server that allows trash talk and punishes being bad. Happy gamer. Normal gamer. Mr. Norman wants to play a game they heard so much about. Plays a mix, eventually finds their server. I can identify with all these, I think. I think for me, I tend to follow somewhere in the middle here, between Stoner Zone and Hardcore. I'm not sure about Wacky. Wacky's okay sometimes. I like to relax with what I know, and I like to get better sometimes. I just kind of oscillate. Let's see what y'all said. Pibble, Wacky, Hardcore, Normal. Okay, so not a stoner. Got it. Kai is a re-normie. Okay. Is the idea of normal that it eventually evolves into one of the other archetypes? I guess so. Pibble, I love doing stupid shit like building bases at Nasons, even though you could totes go hardcore. That's wacky. That's good stuff. So, like, if you talk about personality types, this is maybe someone who's more into, like, exploration, like explorative ways of playing. Stoner is, like, I don't know. I don't know who made this. Like, this isn't rigorous. But let's see what it's compared to, right? Here we go. The modern matchmaking queue era. What the fuck? I paid $50 for this game? I can play however I want. Reported. It's just like a game, man. I like being Hanzo. Reported. I cannot believe how bad all of you shitlords are. Reported. It's a game mechanically, but all the players are so toxic and unhappy for no reason all the time. Why do the devs take so long to respond to all my reports? He's right, you know? We paid a lot of prices, a high price back in the day, in the dedicated server era, because it's a high barrier for people to surmount to get into playing a video game. It is a pain in the ass to find a server and get to know the community and try a bunch of servers, like to browse a server browser, figure out where to go, if you have the right maps, you know, like. And some of those servers can be pretty toxic and pretty negative or have weird plugins and can be all over the map. It was a much more of a Wild West type era, and you got some bad with some good. But the upside of it is that you really could find communities that play the game just the way you want. One of my favorite things to do back in the early 2000s when I was playing Team Fortress Classic every day, I had a lot of friends. I played the game competitively. I actually organized a clan, and we played 250 league competitive matches over 3 years. But for me, one of my favorite things to do wasn't to play pickup games between matches. It wasn't to do 1v1s. I loved joining public servers, just playing some of the competitive maps in the rotation, and just chilling out, putting on some music, and doing this thing right here. This one, Stoner Zone. Maybe work on my aim a little bit, work on my positioning, maybe try out some ways to play I'm not familiar with, and just talk to people. Just socialize. It's a game that it can be played by 20 people at a time, and so you have a group of like a few hundred rotating through at any given time. I love that way of playing the game, and it's one of the things that makes Planetside so appealing to me. Pibble, actually, this stream has nothing to do with that post, and if you can believe it, they're they're totally a coincidence. I picked this topic yesterday morning before all that came out, so let's call it a happy coincidence. For those who don't know, the Planetside 2 put out a quick note today, letting people know how to report toxic or cheating players. Deeg was writing the article Damn, called out. Okay. Well, now that I've been outed, I guess I gotta return the commission for that. I'll be in touch with you after the stream, Ro. But yeah, one of the things I love about Planetside, as long as Rel's here, is the fact that you have the accountability of seeing the same person over and over again. So good. Okay. So that was the dedicated server era. Let's see what else Chris has to say. The reaction on Reddit is interesting. I didn't actually see that. Maybe we'll have a poke at that after we get done reading this. The reaction on Reddit is reliably interesting, which is, of course, a word that disguises many, many qualities. Pro-social design. Take a cue from MMOs like World of Warcraft, where communities are built within guilds. A community of players creates a culture of trust, reducing the chance of disruptive player behavior among guildmates. Oh, that sounds so smart. When disruptions do happen, players self-regulate the community. In his WoW guild, he would often mediate disagreements and conflict among guild members. That experience is very unlikely to happen in a random match-made party. So true. Persistent player groupings. That is the good stuff. Games which reward individuals over teams can become antisocial instead of focusing on rewarding groups. Oh, so smart. I love this. Rather than treating players as disposable, the next best team is only a queue away. Create interdependence among players. In order to succeed, we need to work together. Like tank DPS heals, Chris? Yes, this sounds so smart. Okay. Here's a tweet from Taliesin and Evital. These are World of Warcraft creators. The first picture of our guild Immortalis, who celebrate our 12th birthday today. More recent one since we weren't members back then. All of our happiest WoW memories have been with these absolute legends. Do you guys have any like player groups like this that have been together for a long time? Man, I've thirsted over having a group of players like this. I think if you have something like this, you're very lucky. Look at that. Look at these attractive gamers. Fuck. And it's operative. 3 to 4 years in with a WoW guild, only about 5 of us left, but we're IRL friends now. That's very cool. That's the good stuff right there. Player education. Rather than actioning an account when a player first breaks the rules, instead educate them about what the rules are and how they broke them. I'm getting bored just thinking about this. Tell them that to act out in a competitive game is normal. Have them self-reflect on what really caused them to break the rules. A lot of times players don't even know what they were banned for in the first place. If the system is too sensitive, it can create false positives, allowing them to relive their toxic moment. That's an interesting way of putting it. They can begin to work to learn what's right and what's wrong. So education is good. On your side of the coin, educate players on how to deal with bad-mannered players. As mentioned earlier in the post, understanding that individuals who bully or inflict pain on others usually are feeling pain themselves. Rather than thinking of yourself as a victim, think of yourself as an audience to some troubled person. Or think about it in the stoic sense that you can't control what others say or do to you. You can only control your action and response. So when I think about education, I have a certain memory that haunts me, which is an anecdote from a talk by a person who talked about in a previous Deeg Thoughts. Her name escapes me, but she did a talk all about soldier mindset and scout mindset. Motivated reasoning is what she calls it, which is the idea that you approach an argument not from the point of view of understanding it, but from the point of view of defending it or attacking it. And one of the things that she mentioned is that there's this prevailing attitude that educating people will help them change their mind to a more accurate set of values or a more realistic way of viewing things. But what she actually showed off this great study about climate science and about people's belief in the prevailing climate science. And what it showed is that the more you educate people about climate science, the more entrenched they become in their beliefs, rather than the more they all gravitate towards a single truth that is objective. And I think when it comes to things that are arguable, that education tends not to have the effect of creating truth. It has the effect of enhancing existing arguments sometimes. And so I question the value of education when it comes to this. But I do like the idea, which I've highlighted here, of encouraging people to relive a toxic moment. I got to think about how that would be done. Theory X and Theory Y, Douglas McGregor. Is that what I'm referring to, Lancer? That doesn't ring a bell for me. Okay. Here, what else? Mute, don't permaban. Permanently banning players rarely is effective because oftentimes the most toxic players are also the most engaged. They make a new account, and the game will have to reseed the player's social profile all over again. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. Provide a path for redemption. Yep. Don't reward skill too much. What is the mission of your company and your game? Is it to bring players together and foster community, or is it to figure out who has the highest skill and celebrate them? Maybe it's okay just giving the most skilled players a rank or icon, maybe distribute the skins, titles, and other fancy stuff for other things you value. Remember that we live in a world where people feel like they're increasingly irrelevant. Automation, wealth divide, and what makes them feel that way in your game as well. Man, there's so many appeals to broad principles in Chris's writing. It's a little hard to boil down sometimes. Don't reward skill too much. I'm going to think about this, but I think it's an interesting idea. It's a theory of management. Oh, okay. Final thoughts. It sometimes is lost on us as designers that we're creating games for real people, for humans. And humans are flawed. If we weren't, human nature would be called human science. In The Happiness Hypothesis, psychology researcher and professor Jonathan Haidt coined the idea of the elephant and the rider. The image I came up for myself as I marveled at my weakness of willpower was that I was a rider on the back of an elephant. I'm holding the reins in my hands, and by pulling one way or the other, I can tell the elephant to turn, to stop, or to go. I can direct things, but only when the elephant doesn't have desires of his own. When the elephant really wants to do something, I'm no match for him. Mark Bradford, like many players, regretted his behavior and struggled to make sense of his actions. We're social and emotional beings. As we learn about the self, it's clear that we have less agency over our actions than we think, especially when we're immersed in fast-paced combat in an online game. In situations like that, the elephant's running the show. As game designers, we should see players more as elephants, emotional, and less the rider, rational. I think that is fucking smart as hell. Okay. So reflecting on this, the argument that Chris is making, it sounds like, is that the overall argument is just kind of a general persuasion to really not forget about the game design aspect of how player behaviors emerge, and especially toxic behaviors. I think he brings in a lot of really relevant things to think about, although I'm not too sure what he's recommending other than keeping some general principles in mind. Rel says this whole take's pretty interesting. Feels a lot like this article makes excuses for lack of accountability, though. That's what I'm thinking too, Rel. And I'm thinking of the right way to pave the path between his argument and my take on it, which I imagine is closer to what you're saying. Because what he does here is he actually steers away from player accountability and things like the kinds of controls that we have in games to prevent players from hurting others, muting, bans, stuff like that. Rel says he beats on the matchmaking drum and personal incentives as if toxicity it doesn't exist in non-competitive games. Yeah, and this too is why I took time at the very start of this to go over who Chris is. His commentary here is I don't think he does a good enough job of telegraphing that he's talking about World of Warcraft and World of Warcraft like games. Maybe you can apply this to some other games too that aren't World of Warcraft, but if you take the phenomenon of being matched against internet strangers based on your skill as a given, you, by design, I think, are creating very weird social incentives for people. And one of the things I like about some games, and Planetside is one of them, is there's a certain level of accountability that just comes from seeing the same people when you're playing the game, day in and day out. I don't like the lack of accountability that's inherent with the anonymity of the internet as a baseline. And when you layer on top of that, having many anonymous people be on your team and opposing you day in and day out. I mean, first of all, I think that the idea of playing as part of a anonymous team of internet strangers is pretty non-compelling. And when it gets interesting is when you come together for a reason, like an outfit or a guild, things like that. I actually really think that a lot of the things that he's trying to do, that he's talking about, are mitigating things that are brought about by match-made interactions. And I've harped on this before, but I think there's a certain amount of inhumanness, dehumanization, that comes from skill-based matchmaking. And I think that we accept it for what it is, as just the industry standard at our peril. As Chris is so keen to point out, we need to not forget how the game design creates these interactions. And I think one of the fundamental pieces of that design is how we bring players together. And to my mind, I think that the entire industry of games that create a fake sense of playing together via transactional human interactions that are here today, gone tomorrow, are propping up a system that makes accountability for your behavior so inconsequential that the incentives are too good to blow off steam to do stuff like this. I gotta think about it for a second. NS Operative says he's pointing at players like they are dogs where there are no bad dogs, only bad dog owners. Kind of agree with that. Yeah. Kai says, I think his broader point is that conflicting communities lead to toxicity, right? If the community is full of like-minded people, then toxicity is limited. So developers need to think about how they can foster like-minded communities within their games. Yeah, I don't know if he has a central point, actually, other than to point a finger towards the game design aspect, rather than social watchdog features, like reporting or muting. But I have to say that I wonder, I mean, I don't know what'll happen in the future, but I just have to wonder if anyone feels the way I do about being match made with internet strangers as a social experience. Maybe I'm unique in this, in that I find the experience quite hollow. And there's a certain threshold you reach in a video game where you experience all the content. And you're there because you want to use the game as a platform for something. What is that? Is it personal improvement? Is it connection? And again, this goes a little bit back to one of his points about over-rewarding skill. Where is that? Oh, I don't know where it is. I'm not really 100% sure what I think about this, but there's something about it that I think that is maybe being missed. Okay, what else? Rel says, I think it's also worth entertaining that players in these games are not only players in your game. A soft touch doesn't teach a hard lesson. If you're trying to guide a toxic player, muting them versus banning the account they value, they probably won't learn a lesson with enough impact to keep them from being toxic elsewhere. Do you think it's important these players be taught a hard lesson? Yeah, I guess there are ways to look at this that are like kind of more practical and ways that are more philosophical. I think that my probably inclination is to hedge towards thinking about the philosophy of the problem, which is if we've created a system where someone needs to be removed from a game in order to deal with their behavior, that most of the time, I think that should be something that's explained by the incentives that created that behavior rather than the individual agency of that one player. But I just don't know. Like we've talked about Planetside being a game where it can be in a lot of ways fundamentally frustrating because in a sense, the game that you're playing changes so quickly. You can be having a fun infantry fight and an air to ground shows up. You can be having a great tank battle when all of a sudden you get orbitally struck. It's a game. Any game you play within the game of Planetside is ripe for disruption and being changed at a moment's notice. And is it right to put the burden of... Is it reasonable to expect the players to be pissed off about this? And what should they do about it? There is, of course, friendly, kind of behavior. Friendly competition. But that's engaged with people who have consented to play the game in the same way. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, probably you cannot design toxicity out of social interactions. And you have to rely on the ethical framework that people have and its failure or success to create good behavior. I don't know why I personally basically refuse to be toxic in social gaming scenarios. I don't know why that is. I've explained it by saying that I have an aversion to confrontation, which is true. I do. I'm the last person you're going to see get into a fight outside of video games, like an actual fight. I have an inclination towards understanding people rather than attacking them. But maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. I guess one of the ways that I tend to come down on this, and I'm going to actually just take this down while we're talking, personally, is that I tend to think about, and something I've said before, is that we should hold ourselves accountable and hold others accountable. So, if you're in a situation where someone else is being toxic, how should you behave? There's a saying, 2 wrongs don't make a right, which I think is true and fair. But I think that when it comes to designing, so one of the things that okay, I'm having an idea. We're thinking about this on the fly here. Kai, character named Darth Greg, doesn't act like an IRL Sith. Would that we could all channel the shadow of our personalities as Darth Vader does. What's the saying? One way to say is to speak softly and carry a big stick. Another way is to I think there's the verse from the Bible, an interpretation of it that I've read is that the meek shall inherit the earth. And that I've heard an interpretation of that line in the Bible, and what it says is that you can actually understand that verse if you reinterpret it from an older version of the language to mean something that sounds more like those who have weapons and the ability to use them but choose not to shall inherit the earth. Those who are competent, that can be dangerous, but are in full command of their faculties and choose not to use them. That's the quality you want to go for. And I think when it comes to being toxic, like I think a lot of the things that we see is people aren't making conscious choices in their behavior, right? Is people, I think, are sometimes acting unconsciously. Lanzer, you think I'm referencing a Jordan Peterson lecture? That's accurate. I actually am. I thought that was an... Yeah. We're back. Pibble, you got some splaining to do, my friend. Or rather, we got some troubleshooting to do. So a little backstory. Pibble helped me acquire... Yeah, I just had a blue screen. I wish it had gotten recorded too, because immediately when it happened, I said, Pibble! But y'all didn't hear it. Y'all missed my con moment. We'll work on it later. The first crash I've had, so I mean, it's hard for me to complain too much. But maybe it's okay, you know? Actually, having that restart gave me a minute to think. Illegal GPU overclocking. Exactly. I'm all about that black market overclock. Yeah. Pibble was helping me overclock some memory. And it looks like we need to tinker with it a little bit more. No big deal, y'all. This is not that unexpected. I'm not pissed. Just funny moment. Wouldn't be Deeg thoughts without a stream crash. Is that a trend? Oh man, I don't like that. He's changing into his toxic Sith Lord outfit. That's something that I should do. Maybe I should make a channel incentive to channel Darth Greg. I gotta think about that. But okay, let's get back into it. Okay, talking about toxicity and some takeaways from the Chris Kaleiki article. So I've read a few of Chris's articles, and I like them. They're quite heady in a lot of ways. And if I could, I think I would like to ask him a couple questions about this and about a couple of his arguments. Sounds good, Pibble. Which is, why should gamers accept skill-based matchmaking as an acceptable way to have social interactions over video games? Why should we be okay with this? Why is this an axiom to the arguments here? How do you combine the community-forming self-policing that occurs when players choose their how do you get that quality into a game without losing whatever convenience skill-based matchmaking gives? Can it be done? He's a game designer. Maybe he has a good answer. And is trying to mitigate toxicity from game design actually a worthwhile pursuit? Or is toxicity going to happen no matter what? A good point was made by Rel, I think, earlier up, that toxicity occurs in games that don't have extrinsic rewards, that don't have skill-based matchmaking. Again, I keep bringing up Planetside because it's like the ultimate retort to all this. There is no reward for killing someone other than the intrinsic feeling of the intrinsic feeling of success or defeat. The certification reward is so minimal. The consequences to your overall game session are low. But people still get toxic. They're not going to stop you from achieving your directive goals. They're not going to stop you from getting whatever done in your stream you're doing. It's not a game where those goals create that behavior. And maybe toxicity in Planetside is not as bad as it would be if it were a lobby-based game with skill-based matchmaking. I don't know. I guess I should be totally honest with y'all and say that I think the room of people that he's talking to about this problem is not a room that I would put myself in voluntarily. I, generally speaking, choose not to engage in games that give me transactional social interactions. I want games that give me problems to solve, that encourage persistent community formation, that require communities to solve, that require people coming together over time. That's interesting. That is cool. Looking for dungeon, not cool. Match-made battlegrounds, I don't know. I think that kind of skirts the edge. But again, I come down on, if you create a system that treats people like a product, that treats people like cattle, can we really blame them for acting inhuman? And shouldn't we try to find ways for people to connect that are more human, that more closely emulate the ways people come together? If it's a game about skill, then let's look to sports. Let's look to Little League. Let's look to how these kinds of communities form and how they come together, how they police themselves. If it's not a game about internet athleticism, why are people coming together? I think one of the things I observed coming back to World of Warcraft Shadowlands that I found very interesting and very useful when thinking about the feedback you see from the average World of Warcraft player is how athletic the game's become. In a big way, World of Warcraft the emphasis has moved away from role-playing and moved away from engagement with the world and moved towards self-mastery. And there's such a huge emphasis on individual competence in World of Warcraft now, whether you're doing dungeons, whether you're doing raids, whether you're doing battlegrounds or arena or whatever, that it feels like an esport. And because people want it to be that, their feedback in World of Warcraft is all about making better arenas. And I don't use the word arena in the specific sense, like capital A. I'm using it in lowercase a, arena. Or they want better boxing rings to duke it out in. They don't want a more convincing world with more, I don't know. It loses me. All right, let's read some chat here. Kai, Planetside is made up of different communities, though. If you examine the toxicity of a lot of its friction between those communities, yeah, actually, that topic interests me greatly. How communities sort themselves out and how they orient themselves towards each other. I think that community rivalry is one of the best things that can come out of social community games. But that rivalry can turn, if you don't have the social, if you don't have the game systems in place, or you don't have the social skill to navigate those rivalries, they can very easily turn destructive, right? Because a good rivalry is constructive. A good rivalry creates the world around you in a good way. It creates meaning. It creates value and creates engagement, a good rivalry. Look at the Red Sox versus the Yankees in professional baseball, as an example. All those games are charged with meaning in a way they wouldn't be if there was no rivalry. And his operative guy today was spamming Sassar, and you were compelled to V5 him when they finally killed him. Do you guys think that the voice emotes in Planetside can be used in a way that's toxic? You know, I was really surprised when I got involved in Bushido Way to learn that a lot of people consider the taunting emote V6 to be toxic and get very upset about it. Whereas to me, I always saw it. I don't know, like I kind of ignore those things. If people V6 you after they kill you, does that make you upset? I'm just curious what people think. Lanzer, there's still a high level of toxicity in Call of Duty, Battlefield, Halo. You don't see the same level of trust, goodwill, and Planetside 2 that you see in other games. You think that comes from the familiarity and connection Planetside players experience versus their match-made first-person shooter counterparts. You meant that you don't see the same level of trust, goodwill in the games that you see in Planetside 2. Yeah. Yeah, me too. And I think a big part of that, Lanzer, is just seeing the same people a lot. Again, just by... I wrote a tweet about this pretty recently where I said that the fact that in Planetside you actually see a lot of the same people day in and day out makes it feel like a world in a way a lot of shared world games don't these days. Henry says yes, V6 feels bad. Kai, the intention can be toxic, whether your interpret is toxic is up to you. Lanzer motivates you to want to kill them. Good, I feel that way too. And it's operative. V5 is a new V6. It's a taunt, and taunting is generally toxic, especially when used sarcastically. Rel depends on the context. Yep. Henry, you had an entire outfit spam voice lines at you. They even created a script to automate it. That's dedication, Henry. Kai, after Soul Tech outfit wore as you V6 to every player from a cheating outfit for weeks, that was definitely intended in a toxic manner. But you also V6 friends sometimes. Yeah, that comes down to consent, right? Like if it's a friend and you treat him like shit, it's like this is part of your language. It's part of your love language. Nothing wrong with that. Henry, you tried to approach the individual members and tell them that you're experiencing as bullying and ask them to stop, but they didn't. Lanzer, you'd rather say it makes you want to high-five them in the face with a Vanguard AP round. So poetic, Lanzer. Henry, I was going through a rough patch IRL too, and really was looking to be immersed in Planetside and forget all about that, and the bullying prevented you for you. That's sad, Henry. Yeah. I guess part of the reason I don't feel it is because when I play Planetside, I stream it. Like I don't very often play Planetside off stream anymore because that to me, playing it when I stream is a more fun experience. And when I'm hanging out with you guys, a lot of the stuff in the game just loses its bite. The people being toxic to me loses its bite. Rage Tell has become content. But if you want to be immersed in the world and you're experiencing that, man, I get it. I have actually 2 memories from my old World of Warcraft days, before when I was still playing actively in the 2000s. One was in Burning Crusade when I was trying to do daily quests, the very first daily quest in World of Warcraft, and one was from Wrath of the Lich King. But I can't remember what I was doing, but in both situations I was getting griefed mercilessly by a small group of players, and I didn't understand why. And they were emoting, and they were making a big show about ruining my day, and I can't tell if I was more upset about being inconvenienced or if I was more upset about their glee at inconveniencing me. It really bugged me, man. I felt like I was seeing someone's asshole hanging out of their pants. I felt like I was seeing something disgusting and what's the word? What's a good word for it? I can't think of a good word. And as operative, people always find ways to twist the knife, and Sea of Thieves, people will water bucket your soul as you float above your body. Water bucket your soul as you float above your body? What does that mean? Henry, feeling powerless to stop it sucks. Yeah, and I guess it's pretty easy to, that video we saw earlier about becoming an audience member to the situation rather than being a victim of the situation. I guess it's easy to do that when you're streaming because, like, you see the game through the eyes of your audience. It hits different when you're just gaming. So yeah, okay. Maybe the V6 thing is a bigger problem than I see it as. And why do people do these things? As operative, you scoop with your bucket so it looks like you're scooping their soul up. It's dumb, but it irks people. Weird. And when we talk about these things happening despite the lack of extrinsic incentives, despite the lack of random matchmaking, like when we talk about that, to me it just comes down to what are the accountability? How is the design of the game keeping people accountable? You guys remember? I don't know how many of you guys play World of Warcraft vanilla, and those of you who did, I don't know how many of you experienced it before the honor system went in. But one of the things I like to talk about with World of Warcraft are the difference between Phase 1 World of Warcraft pre-honor system, and then the weird time in World of Warcraft that's has the honor system in place but no battlegrounds, and then finally the evolution of it into having battlegrounds and then eventually arenas. So I think when the World of Warcraft was originally designed, it was really created to be exactly what it's called, a world. And part of what makes a world hang together is consistency, persistence. And I mean, they figured out that they needed raids and dungeons to be in separate areas, but the game that had PvP in it, and the PvP, when it first came out, there were no incentives to PvP that were extrinsic. All the PvP in World of Warcraft when it first came out were intrinsically incentivized. People who wanted to gank you for fun, people who wanted to grief you, or people who wanted control over certain parts of the world. And in a way, that can be quite interesting. Because in World of Warcraft, you can just come back with friends, you can call for help, there are ways to deal with these things. And having the PvP in that game be about just dominance in an arena that didn't really pay off at all, except in your own sense of what you cared about, or just control of the map, felt like it was really a world where people who do normal things can do them. And part of what made it feel that way is that you saw a person do something, you can see that same person on the road going to a dungeon later, and you can get your revenge. Like, there could be consequences to acting however you acted in World of Warcraft vanilla. And then they added in the honor system, which gave an extrinsic incentives to kill players in the world, which, you know, the good side of that is what people talk about with the old fights between South Shore and Terran Mill. But the bad side of it is things like camping flight masters, which, although they became perfected in the classic era of WoW, did exist back in 2004 and 5. And the incentives totally changed the way people played. And they changed the way people played so much that in order to deal with it, they needed to take PvP out of the world and put it into an instance and put rules around it. And when they did that, I think that they killed part of the World of Warcraft. And I know that it's accepted, like, that's what the game is now. Like, that's how it proceeded. But what they did was over time, the designers of World of Warcraft have designed the accountability further and further out of the way that people interact. And they apply that same philosophy to dungeons and to raids and to every part of their game. And it's now to a point where if you're playing retail World of Warcraft, the likelihood that you'll run into the same person more than once, unless you're playing at a very high level, is just low. It doesn't feel like a world. It feels like a shopping mall or an airport where all your interactions are transactional. And why should we accept this? And when toxicity emerges from this, shouldn't we look at the foundation that it stands upon rather than excusing it? There's been a lot of talk lately about negativity in the World of Warcraft community. Asmongold published a long tweet, whatever those things are called, about the negativity and how it's justified. And this is all kind of this stemming from an interview that a creator named Preach did with the director of World of Warcraft named Ian Hezacostas, where a lot of people feel that they're in kind of a cycle with World of Warcraft where the same bad things keep happening. And they are. But they keep playing anyway. And they think that, and rather than holding themselves accountable for their behavior, they hold the game accountable for that. I think you got to do both. But I think a lot of this is really a tangent, but I think that in a lot of ways, the entire way that World of Warcraft design shifted over time to be less and less about the World of Warcraft and more about the feeling of Warcraft is a desire to save players from themselves, to save people from themselves. And I would like, in my mind, to philosophically entertain a design of games that moves not towards saving players from themselves, but towards more human, accountable ways of interacting. I've even thought about the idea of, like, what if we ripped off the veil of anonymity and made a game where people had to use their real names and identities in order to play? Wouldn't that be interesting? What if you made it part of the game? Like, you had a webcam and the webcam of your face was projected onto your character and you could see it as a value add. I don't know. But I know that, like, when I'm playing a game with my friends, the way we behave matters because my relationship with that person will change depending on the way I behave. And when your relationship with someone you interact with online doesn't ever have a chance to come back and bite you, why would you take the time to be good? All right, let's look at some chat. Kai says V6 isn't the problem. You can achieve the same effect through V1, V8, or any emote in the game mechanic. Henry agrees. And it's operative. It's true. They say anything if they kill you, it's going to be a jab. Unless you're sending a compliment. Right? Lanzer, there's a certain element of video games that afford people the luxury of indulging their base desires with low likelihood of repercussions. They'd experience if they were to emulate that behavior in everyday life. Yeah. Here's a question for you, Lanzer. Do you think that element is justifiable? Is that something we should protect? In the long term, no. And it's operative. You could very easily murder anyone sub 60 because the game lets you, but you hold off and let them pass. Right. And if you have a game world where you're going to see that person again, that choice can be meaningful in a social sense. But if not, it's just, how do you feel about yourself at the end of the day? And humans need social consequences in order to behave well. I just think we really do. Kai, do you guys think making sports compulsory in school would help foster sportsmanship in future gamers? Huh, let me think about that, Kai. I played baseball when I was in school. I was a baseball nerd growing up, actually. I was a filthy Yankees fan. Grew up in Connecticut. I'm not sure if you can make sports compulsory. You can make some kind of competitive group activity, though, like something in class where there's a winner and a loser. You can have sportsmanship, but not necessarily like a physical sport. I don't know. Gym class kind of did that too for me. I'm not sure how gym class works anymore, though. It's been a long time since I was in a gym class, as you can tell. Rel, in regards to earning honor in the Dungeon Finder and whatnot, to your recollection, those ideas originated with the community. You can't really blame them for moving down the path they have, at least in those early days. WoW was being developed to address real pain points at the time. Yeah, Rel, I agree with you. I don't know if I think that my fundamental, like, I've looked a lot at the World of Warcraft community. Interests me a lot, and I think one of the questions I've always have is are there any fundamental truths about the game, the developer, or the community that can help understand the things that happen? And I think, to me, I think one of the truths is that Blizzard is fundamentally a company that listens to their gamers and does what they want. And I think that it's funny that over time, that strategy seems to be making gamers angry, or at least certain gamers angry. I think that Blizzard has a fundamentally sympathetic way of doing game development. I think they care about the people who play their games. I think probably, Rel, and you can tell me what you think, but my guess is the majority of people who make video games care a lot about the people who play them and about the things people think and say about their games. And you look at something that, like, what's his face, J. Allen Brack saying you think you do but you don't, or Kevin Jordan, the ex-Blizzard developer, who is kind of the modern custodian of that philosophy. I think that there aren't a lot of people out there who look at a gamer and say, what you want's not valid. And I think as time goes on and the voices of gamers become louder and louder, that reality becomes more and more apparent. Anyway, chat. Lanzer, you'd say you don't have the academic expertise to know what the literature on the topic say. Yeah, I mean, none of us are examining this academically. We're just using our shared experience to talk through it. That's all we can do, really. What observations have been made in the field? Kai, by sport, you mean any form of competition like chess could be considered sports in this context? You think the process of learning to lose or win gracefully in front of other people helped you and others you know? Yeah. Sportsmanship, right? How do you engage in competition in a way that's fun and respectful? I think that there's certain social skills that get taught that way that are hard to learn otherwise. I don't know. I also grew up in a family where I was one of four children, the oldest of four. So I don't know. There's some kind of education that comes from having so many brothers and sisters. And it's operative. Do you really think the community is capable of steering a game to perfection or near perfection? No. No, in fact, I have kind of a fatalistic interpretation of community feedback. I think that the more literally it's followed, the more likely it is to steer something into doom. There's I think some real useful truth to be found in the world. Gamers are experts on playing games, but designers and developers are experts on designing and developing games. And the way that expertise comes together in a way that's usually the most profitable is in a way that understands what the other side is experts about. And it's funny, but I think in the world of game development, that the onus of understanding tends to be placed mostly on the developers. which, let's all be honest, is not entirely gamers' fault. There are a lot of things we just don't get to know about the games that we love and play. You know, one of the games I'm getting back into is Guild Wars 2. A game with a very interesting history. To me, very interesting. And there was an era in that game between 2016 and 2019, so about 3 years, where they put out high quality episodic content every 2 to 3 months, and without missing a beat, dropped an expansion, and then continued doing episodic content every 2 to 3 months without missing a beat. And it was incredible to watch. It was, if you cared about that like the kind of casual story content and you like exploring new parts of the world, it was like the golden era of Guild Wars 2 in a lot of ways. And but after that time ended, there was no more game to play. There was no plan for the future. There were huge amounts of layoffs at ArenaNet, and it became apparent that the studio didn't know what to do, that they had to change their plans in some fundamental way. And my guess about that time is that they were planning to transition away from Guild Wars 2 and announce a new game, but that it was canceled months before the announcement. And the team had to scramble to make more Guild Wars 2 happen. It took them like 3 or 4 months to make that scramble and to announce something, which was very thin on the ground. And then that began a period of which is just ending, actually. It's going to be ending later this year. This 2-year period where ArenaNet tried to get out content as good and as fast as they could, but it seemed like they just didn't have whatever horsepower they had before. And why? Why is that? Why wasn't a third expansion being planned for Guild Wars 2 for 2019? Those are questions that fans are not going to get an answer to for that game. And it's questions like those that make me excuse gamers for having not being as sympathetic to developers as they otherwise could, because there's just an information asymmetry. I wonder if we can ever get to a world where gamers and developers can really talk about things. Where I'm not actually sure how I want to present the idea, to be honest. Ralph's getting harder and harder when so much is able to be taken out of context or cherry-picked to throw into your personal agenda. Being candid is a risk. Risk. There's the key word. What's the risk to me if I say something dumb? If I say something that ends up being false, what's the risk to me? It's pretty low. I'm just here to entertain y'all on stream, and at the end of the day, most of y'all are here because you like me and care about what I have to say, and you'll forgive me if I say something dumb. And if you don't like my content, people just won't show up. The hooks for my content are not the same as a video game, right? Lenzer, was it ever not a risk, though? You think as the information age has pulled this curtain back on many ingredients that make up decisions, even sensitive high-level decisions, that we get closer to this world every day? Yeah, and there's some people out there who would say that world is not a good place to be. I keep looking back to Kevin Jordan because he's such an outlier. And he's an advocate for going back to a world where developers and gamers don't talk to each other at all. Which is kind of, I really want to ask him about someday. It's so fascinating, his point of view. And the sense I get is one that I don't like. Because of what Rel said about the risk. Because Rel, whatever you say is representing a company, you know? And even if you weren't in leadership position, what you say would represent RPG to some extent. When I talked to Alan Lapidus on the podcast a few months back about the containment site, what he said represented the company. And he had to choose what he wanted to say, understanding that what he did say would be projected forward. People would be able to look back at it and hold him accountable for what he said about it versus what came to be. Whereas for me, a year ago, I did one of my first pieces of Planetside content on the channel asking the question, will Planetside escalation succeed? I can't even remember what I said in it, to be honest. But was I right? Who's going to hold me accountable for being right or wrong about that? I guess it's about what your skin in the game is, right? My skin in the game is not as deep as Rel or another game developer, because for me, this is not how I support myself. This is something I do as a passion project. And maybe that's what it's about for Toxicity too. Skin in the game. Maybe that's another way to put accountability. We've talked about how toxicity can often emerge from a feeling of disempowerment. You could always read Reddit, lots there. Oh man, do I have to? All right, let's have a look. Why not? It's topical. Let me find it. There's also a really great thread on Reddit today about the new player experience on Planetside subreddit. I have voted that one. It's a good one. Building a stronger community. Okay. So here's the letter. I like this picture, Ro. This is a good one. Hey there. Let's see if I can make myself sound like Ro. Channel his voice. I don't know if I can do it, man. Hey there. I wanted to take a moment. No, I can't. I wanted to take a moment to share some thoughts on the importance of our games community. The thing is, Rel doesn't have any really standout inflections in the way he speaks. So I'm not even sure how I'd imitate it. Like if someone has really standout things about the way they speak, I can usually imitate it. Okay. E-dubs offer you implants, like breast implants. E-dubs. For the relaxed bedroomy voice. Oh yeah, you're right. Rel is such a hey there. Hey there. Hey there. Hey there. Hey there. I wanted to take a moment to share some thoughts on the importance of our games community and talk about actions we're taking to help maintain it. A community's overall disposition towards other players is, in my eyes, one of the most telling indicators of a game's long-term health. Our community is, on most days, particularly welcoming to new players. We have veterans who organize large, server-level events for all to partake in, and we have a group of great content creators who care deeply about the game. When all things are weighed in the balance, Planetside 2 is, by and large, one of the best gaming communities I've been a part of. That's not to say there isn't room to improve. Our community isn't an isolated entity that exists only on Araxis. The people you meet in the sandbox are the same ones you're going to find in Discord, on Reddit, or in the forums. So what you say and can have impacts that ripple outwards. Ultimately, We want all of our players to treat each other with excellence. Targeted harassment, hate speech, and inciting toxicity, as well as cheating and exploitation, are all things that we take seriously. While punitive measures are typically taken on actions that happen within the game, don't rule out being held accountable for your actions outside of it as well. To help us combat poor behavior, we've given you some new options to send in reports. Emailing either of these addresses will allow you to report players for breaking the code of conduct or terms of service, and allow you to provide evidence more easily. Please be sure to include the character name and a date time if possible. Links to videos or screenshots are also helpful, provided it's not sent as an actual attachment to the email, as those don't get reviewed. I'm going to skip ahead a little. To wrap this up, we want to make sure that folks who jump in game only have to worry about dealing with, bullets, explosions, and whether or not that Bastion fleet carrier is coming your way, not people being awful in chat or elsewhere. So, continue helping us make the community a bit more welcoming. Thanks, folks. Rel, lead designer. I'll work on it, folks. I just thought of the better gaming videos that you did back in the day, Rel. Try to channel that vibe. Thoughts on better gaming, that's what it was. With all those videos. You miss doing them? You should carve out some time, man. Maybe we can collaborate. Do it together. That would be fun. Okay. That'd be fun. Word. Yeah, I think so. Okay. So, do we have to see what Reddit thinks? Do I really have to do this? Okay. Let's go back to the Planetside category. We're talking about Planetside things. So, we're going to let Twitch update their classification of our content here. Okay. Deeg thoughts on better gaming. The ultimate collab. Okay. You all braced? Okay. Top comment. 39 votes by ALN Isolator. A very good precedent to set. Can't wait for the statement to become the basis for questionable bans for tweets and Reddit posts. Of course. You had me in the first half. Okay. I think I got to ask you about this, Rel. Like, what kind of actions outside of the game are we thinking about here? Did you list any here? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. This subreddit is not moderated by RPG. That's a good thing. And this was the norm for subreddits until fairly recently. People turn to subreddits when criticism gets centered on official channels, whether directly, removing posts and reviews, or indirectly, not providing a means for users to communicate their grievances en masse. This dev letter tells us they plan to extend their terms of service to services they do not actually maintain. As presented, it seems well-intentioned, but the legality is not clear to me. Good thing it's not a legal document. Riteef says, I can't imagine that legality would enter into it. If they choose to stop doing business with you, they can, unless they can prove. Ah, Commander Sirius in the Sirius Army. Welcome. You found us at a low moment talking about browsing Reddit for content. How's it going? We're talking about toxicity tonight. Actually, it's a great coincidence. Yesterday, I'm like, what am I going to talk about on my stream tomorrow? Toxicity in gaming. This would be great. And then, of course, this lovely post and in the world of Planetside pops up about toxicity. So there's a crossover happening. So people are talking all about the slippery slope of holding people accountable for actions outside the game. Okay. Surely I jest. No, toxicity in my Planetside? Oh, no way. No way. Serious, how was your stream, brother? E-dubs, I don't understand this knee-jerk defensive reaction from some players to being held accountable for their actions. Ooh, boy, that is so... Yes. Yes, E-dubs, yes. You spoke my mind without me puffing my lips. I like that. And that, I think, really is a lot of what we have on Reddit sometimes. Is it's the only way for people who feel bad to get out their feelings. I'm not saying that's what's happening here specifically, but it is a phenomenon that is all too common. Slippery slope. I don't know, man. Is there anything really juicy in this thread? Look at the names of some of the folks responding. It becomes pretty clear. Well, there's a whole subculture on Reddit that is really based on this seems to espouse this philosophy that I'm going to label accountability is for other people, not for me. And either they do this gleefully for humor or tragically because they're a victim of their own feelings. I don't know. Here's the important part. Oh, Moocast coming up. Now there's a landmine that I've been avoiding tripping over for a little while. I still want to learn more about some of the Moocast stuff. Moocast, interesting guy. Had him on my podcast last year. Really, really important long-time contributor to the Planetside community. And I guess my overall feeling about that situation is I hope we're not all held accountable to the things we believe, like the way people seem to be holding him accountable. What damage has actually been done? Lanzer, while the opposition used distracting language, Rel, I don't think the spirit of the thought is ill-founded. Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind. I'm curious, Rel. Like, I guess when I read these, I usually try to read them for the spirit, and the spirit I see here is like, you know, be cool to each other. There are means to having consequences, and here are some things you might look out for. Mal Vicino has a comment toward the bottom that sums up the thread reactions pretty well. ITT, this is literally 1984, guys. I mean, how seriously should we take... So there's like a boy cried wolf problem with a lot of people who are posting in these places. And I guess you can get around that problem by just using alt accounts and stuff. But the gladiatorial arena that is Reddit is one that I've... I feel that doing this, guys, by streaming you my thoughts and telling you what I think, and trying to be entertaining about it. This is my way out of posting on Reddit. Because I used to be someone who put a lot of time into Reddit. I'm like, a forum for discussion about things I care about. How wonderful. How great. This self-selecting forum, this coliseum of intellectual consideration and meritocratic-based argumentation. And of course, that's not what it is at all. It's a place where just like a turd dropping into a toilet bowl, the one that's the the one that's the simplest and the lightest is the one that floats to the top. Well, a lot of the most important comments are the ones you rarely see unless you do some digging. Yep. I think it's probably true. I mean, are there any other ones here, Rel, that we should pay attention to? It's quicker and easier, Kai. Helps circumvent the friction created by going through the CS ticket system. Yeah. And it's operative, where it's not a discussion ever, because as soon as position A gets ahead, position B and C, yeah, they just disappear, actually. Well said, yes. Yep. Yeah, the upvoting and downvoting system is an interesting social experiment, but I think perhaps not a successful one. Sirius really likes the email idea, can submit supporting evidence, and don't feel like you're reaching non-Planetside people you know. Nice to have something dedicated to Planetside. Yeah, I agree. I like that too, Sirius. Hey, Zoogie Mac, thanks for the follow. Welcome to my stream of thinking aloud about the things and the matters of the day. Kai, okay, thanks for the clarification. Ask because cheating is a problem on Soltech due to slow turnaround times. Yeah, actually, I wonder how many of these are going to come from the Soltech community. I know that's a place where it's been difficult to get help, from what I've seen anecdotally. Reddit's a rabbit hole. You can spend hours reading. It's true, you can, and I have. You know, actually, one of these problems I'm starting to have in my life is now that I've turned my hobby into like this creative thing, is like I can just there are weeks where I don't get podcasts done because I just spend my time on social media instead of actually being like, wait, no, I got to invite people to the podcast. I got to plan content. I got to guard my time carefully. Edub, the slippery slope thing makes your blood boil. What can this possibly slip to? Do toxic things in game are influencing the game and the community suffer game-related consequences? Edubs with another high-quality take. And it's operative at the end of the day. You'll always appreciate more attention to problems than less or neutral. Sign of positive progress. Yes, yeah. Lanzer, there are things it could slip to Edubs, although the net benefit might outweigh what's given up. Rapid. Hey, what's up, Rapid? Maybe stop having fun so you can focus on the podcast. Yeah, but am I having fun when I'm browsing Reddit? That's the thing, like another discussion. Not gonna get into it. Toxic gamer alert. Yeah, so like some of the takes here are about looking at the strictest interpretation of this note, which is one of these kinds of, I don't know if logical fallacy is the right label for it, but it's I think a method of argumentation where you kind of stand up almost like a straw man version of the argument that's being presented here. So this sentence, while punitive measures are typically taken on actions that happen within the game, don't rule out being held accountable for your actions outside of it as well. I don't know, y'all. I think Planetside is a small world, and I think that if there's a sense of accountability outside the game, unless we see otherwise, like I still find myself wanting more information about that. I gotta be honest with you, Rel. if anything, just to create a better counter argument, because I do this the spirit of this is, I think, is 100% admirable, and this tendency to take the strictest interpretation of what's being said just to shut it down. I think you can see this as a tactic that's used by some people just to perpetuate the anti-Planetside, anti-Rel, anti-RPG kind of narrative. But I think that where the trouble begins is where reasonable people who are open to persuasion, like say me, see that argument and think, well, although strict, I can see this as possible. Shouldn't this be addressed? And that's where I think, like, okay, well, maybe there is room for clarifying. But I don't know, man. I actually care a lot less about the kinds of ways about these kinds of systems where the game developer is trying to fix a toxicity problem. Like, it has to happen, okay? But to me, I think the more interesting discussion is about why these things happen in the first place, and what gamers should be doing to police themselves and each other, and how to prevent these kinds of things. Because it's childlike, I think, to place the responsibility of policing behavior in the hands of an authority figure. And to critique the authority figure for having to step in. Shouldn't you be trying to manage yourself and your boys? Shouldn't you be trying to act in a way that is consistent with what you want to see in the community? Isn't that the adult thing to do? But then again, sometimes I wonder if there are any other adults that play these games. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one. Maybe all of this feeling too. Well, the line above it attempts to point out the behaviors that are most likely to take action on. Targeted harassment, hate speech, inciting toxicity. I mean, I'm not going to defend those things. Christ. I mean, shit. Kai, it's like people worrying that they'll be canceled when there are no reason for anyone to actually care about to cancel them. I hate cancel culture. That's a topic that I may take on in the future. If I get very brave, we'll see. Daddy, I personally am scared of getting either banned from stuff from ages ago or faked evidence because no consequences are sending anonymous emails to those addresses. Well, I'm just going to put out there a devil's advocate argument is maybe you should feel afraid of being held accountable for those things. And if we as a community believe that we can be the victim of false testimony, then maybe we should think about how that can be responded to. But there's a reason that people talk shit in video games but not in real life, because in video games, someone can't walk up to you and sucker punch you for saying something dumb. I'm not trying to say that you have done anything wrong, Daddy, but I don't know if having consequences is necessarily a bad thing. Kai, you don't have nothing to worry about unless you piss off a large group of people. That's probably true. If it's recent, it's fair. Outside of 3 years, nah. I mean, like, I would be astonished if there was an effort to look back at historical wrongs. I would be astonished, and that's the point of this is. I'm fairly certain it's about preventing future things. Look at the unspoken code of conduct and how it was wielded during Outfit Wars. R18 and pigs got off scot-free. Just be good. Just be good to your fellow planet man and planet woman. There are large groups of bad people reporting. Mass reporting is a thing. Hey, Young. Morning. You can't prevent people from being toxic outside of the game on social media like Discord, Reddit, Twitter, so on. Now they just do it on alt accounts. People should be nicer, but it can't be prevented. It certainly won't be prevented if there are no negative consequences. I'm not sure if you can ever 100% prevent people from doing something like this, but you can make enough of them pay a price for it, right? A price that we all agree is proportional to the offense. Lanzer, you wouldn't be surprised if the response we're seeing to this letter takes into account your post about the unspoken code of conduct. Do you think it's fair to point out that it would be wise to approach the restriction of punitive actions taken towards player agency with extreme caution? Yeah. I mean, Lanzer, I think that probably already does happen. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for Rel there. He can say what he wants, but I also think that it was interesting reading the one Reddit comment about legality, right? Like as if somehow their freedom to play Planetside is something that's protected by law. And they aren't playing in an experience that's created by a private company. They can withdraw that access at will for any reason. I think people act as though they have rights that they don't sometimes. I don't know. Just vamping. Star-Lord says, you feel like if one is arguing against the terms of service, those people should look at themselves first as players in that environment. The world as a whole is completely losing accountability. At the same time, some of those people who argue against terms of service have the most absurd Discord rules and will ban people at the highest infringement. You know, private Discords are private Discords. I mean, people can make whatever world they want in Discord. I certainly have. Although I've never had to ban anyone from Discord, so that's nice. But I agree about the accountability. This seems to be where I come down. I feel like such an old person using the word accountability over and over again. Zybitnet, how do you figure out who is outside the game? If they have a different name outside the world, you find out who are in game and punish them. Yeah, that's a question for Raul. Rapid, more for communities, like recordings of Twitch streams with comms. Interesting. Oh no, Henry. Okay, we have a 5-minute ban of the word accountability. I don't have a timer set up for my stream right now, so y'all help me. I have 8:50 p.m., so not till 8:55 p.m. If I say it again, the clock resets. And I'll gift a sub whenever I fuck up. Oh no. Okay. Rel has banned the word toxic. 8:56. I'm gonna have to make some more rules around this, y'all. Community. The ban is Rel. Okay. Hang on, I gotta write this down. I'm gonna lose track. That's the first one. That's the second one. Okay. Okay. It's on, y'all. Let's go. Zoogie Mac, not sure what we're talking about here, but it sounds tiresome trying to moderate anything and a waste of time. I think anyone who's ever moderated something could probably agree with that sentiment. I'm so far behind on chat, y'all. Player OW3 says, pretty sure it's just the lead game designer of RPG making 2 new email accounts so he doesn't have any more time to look at the past. Makes sense. Zelp, I think there's a pretty significant difference between some banter or competitive shit-talking and the negative behavior they're referring to. There's definitely a line you have to cross. Yeah. Yeah, friendly banter is one thing. Totally. Totally. Lancer says the power to exact a material effect on a player's existence or relevance in this game is of such magnitude that you think it's reasonable to say that a preponderance of evidence isn't sufficient in being convinced that punitive action towards players' agency is the correct goal. Lanzer, I'm going to have to throw that one up to the Planetside lawyers for consideration. I'm not sure if I have an opinion about that. Rapid, you should always try. If you ban someone who's being a toxic person on an account that they could care about, it'll hurt them, and most don't make alts for revenge. I'm going to have to fast forward. Lanza makes a good point about legality being about terms of service. Oh, did I do it? Did I trip over one of them? All right, fine. Okay. So I'll reset the timer for that word that begins with a T. And I owe y'all a gift sub. Hang on. Oh, I can do it through here. And yeah. All right. Congratulations to Lancer for profiting from my trip up. All right. Greeno Buff, thank you for the follow, friend. Welcome. Daddy, I like the idea behind this. It's great, but it should have been like a new category or something on customer support. The way it's solved just leads people spamming the email or abusing the anonymity of creating new emails to abuse the system with false and/or mass reports. That's an implementation problem. I don't know if I can agree that it's a bad idea because it's difficult to manage. I also think that there are pretty good tools for managing those kinds of things. As someone whose day job relies on emails going to a ticketing system, I can tell you that there are ways to handle it that are not insane. Lancer's plans come to fruition. I need to get some new emojis going, y'all. Zugi, have I ever seen the T word? Look no further than an E-dubs. With his adorable curly hair and his huggable personality, thinking he can just enjoy video games. E-dubs, is this true? Do you have adorable curly hair and a huggable personality? Do in-games GMs still exist? I have no idea. Deeg is a Planetside GM confirmed. Why not? Sure. Christone Jazz says, ironically, Unidubs are some of the few players you admire. Daddy, you got a point, but why create a new system if you already have a working one? Well, I don't know. That's a question for the lead game designer. His name begins with a W. I think we can presume that there's some benefit to be had with the change. Otherwise, why change anything? Deeg should apply for a community manager. I don't know about that. And then pay out for reading that message. I think you might be right, player. I think that's my problem is I wouldn't ban anyone. I would just sit down and talk to them. I would make them get on a podcast with me. Let's talk this out. Let's review your behavior. Lanzer wants the community manager. Now, Lanzer for community manager. There it is. Daddy, I guess they have a reason behind creating a new system. We just don't know. Yeah, exactly. And do we need to know? Like, maybe we don't. I think it's cool to see that there's renewed interest in it. I think we're actually good on all the bands. I think that we've gotten our 5 minutes. And what was Rapid? Were you the one who got me? Of course it was Rapid. Did I say the word community again? I have until this minute as the end of that band, so I think I hit it again. Crap. Okay. We'll reset that word for 5 more minutes. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this gift sub thing forever, but it's kind of fun. All right. No more C word for 5 more minutes. I got a few more gift subs in me, Henry. I'll be all right. Appreciate your concern, though. So we're going to go till 3 after. Hey, enjoy the subs. So, what else do we need to say about this topic? Y'all are so considerate of me. I sure appreciate that. But don't you worry. I'm not gonna put my wife and myself in the poorhouse. I'm just trying to build a stronger group of people. Clan. Daddy, I don't think there's much to say about it. We just got to see how it turns out for us. Yeah. Clan. I miss calling things clans. A clan was what I played back in the TFC days, Team Fortress Classic days. It wasn't a team. It wasn't like a guild or a group. It was a clan, man. It's tribal. It's your family. Why not clans? I like the clan formation. Planetside clan, yes. Yeah, it's a clan thing to watch and see. Appreciate that, Lancer. So let me think. This whole discussion, for those of y'all who joined late, all came from this article by ex-Blizzard developer Chris Kaleiki, talking about how the war on toxicity will fail. It was a cool article. It's basically all about how he's suggesting that game designers should look towards themselves in their designs to mitigate toxicity. And I guess maybe I'm the wrong audience for this letter. I guess if I was a developer or designer, this would be more useful to me. But I'm not. I'm a gamer. I'm in the trenches with y'all. And I think for us gamers, the more we look to game design to solve our problems, the less content we're going to be with our experiences playing these games. Be accountable to your own happiness, your own satisfaction. And where you can, hold others accountable too. I don't know. Zugi says, a clan is a group of people united by an actual or perceived kinship and descent. Even if lineage details are unknown, clan members may be organized around a founding member or an apical ancestor. Clans in indigenous societies tend to be exogenous, meaning that their members cannot marry one another. Exogamous. Never heard that word before. Lame, can't even marry one another. So lame. Rapid Planetside could do well if you could turn off hearing, seeing the V6 and other V macros are spanned to be toxic. And horns. I love the horns, though. I don't know, man. I mean, I think you can't design toxic out of the game, guys. This reminds me of the arguments I read about removing voice chat from Overwatch. It's like, why would you remove a good social system just because some people use it? Like, you have to assess the damage. Is the aversion of damage worth the loss in value from that system? I don't know, man. And maybe comparing it to Overwatch of Voice is apples and oranges. Rapid, you can already turn the chat box off. Why not the voice comms with that? You can turn off voice comms in Planetside. Oh, you mean the emotes? E-dubs, he's wrong. As gaming groups become more and more reflective of the general group, the same standards of toxicity will apply to both. Acting like an ass just because it's a game isn't going to fly anymore. Do you think that's happening, E-dubs? Do you think that the gaming community... Well, it's okay. We're past. It's been 5 minutes. Okay, we're good. Do you think that the gaming community is going to merge with the overall, like, global community, internet community? Like, or is it going to remain somehow distant from it? Disable jumping, crouching, running in circles, disable weapon switching. Give all players a blindfold so they can't see anything when they die. I would like a blindfold cosmetic. League has it right. No voice equals no toxic game. That was a joke. Gaming definitely was more insular before. There's a more general appeal now across more games within gaming. Yeah, I think you're right, Dubs. Yeah. And give it a toggle so you can wear that over your eyes or as a bandana. Kai sneaking it in. The high value. Y'all, I have nothing more to say on this topic tonight. I think it's an open-ended question. It's funny though, but I feel kind of bad because I really thought I would have more to say about Chris's argument, but his basic premise is, what can game designers do? And I guess I find that I just realized that, like, I don't care. This is why I have a hard time getting really excited about, like, the email reporting system. Like, it's good that it's there. It's good that it's there. But, like, I'm here to talk to the gamers, man. I'm here to talk to the gamers. I'm here to talk to people who are stuck, who feel stuck in a game, who, like, love a game and hate a game and can't decide which it is, and who are trying to connect with people and trying to kill people and do both at the same time. Because that's what I am. I have this, like, fundamental belief that I can't justify, that there's something very important about the way human nature manifests itself in video games with regard to the intersection of technology and as human. I think it's important to work on. NS Operative, have a good night. All right, man. Take it easy, NS Operative. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate your contribution to the conversation. Daddy would buy a Rel bandana helmet for 2,000 Daybreak. I'd probably pay $50 for a bandana. Planetside. Well, I'm a streamer, I get more value out of it, so. Maybe 100. Rapid. Difference is less people play for fun. Now it's just to siphon fun from others. Rarely do people play games for their own fun now. Do you think that's true, Rapid? I don't know if that's true. Christo and Jazz. Be the change you want to see. Yes. Hell yes. I love it. I love it. And you know what else I really like? I saw this great short talk by Steve Jobs. Where he was giving a talk to a group of people in technology. This is kind of an old talk, like before iPhones and all that stuff. And he talked about skin in the game, which is an idea I've been giving a lot of thought lately. And basically, what he did was he polled his audience to be like, how many of y'all are like developers? How many of y'all are business people? And how many of y'all are whatever? And he found that his whole, the whole audience he was speaking to were all consultants. He's like, oh man, consultants. You can do some good work as a consultant, but I really encourage you, if you're in the consulting world, to actually get involved with a product and try to make something. Try to create something. Because if you create something and you get skin in the game, you're going to learn things and you're going to connect with people in ways that are more meaningful that won't happen if you don't try to make something. And I appreciate that literally, because that's entirely what I'm doing here by being on the stream. I'm putting some skin in the game. I've had a lot of ideas about the way games should be played and should be thought about for a long time. Who the hell cared what I thought? And Planetside is a game that is fertile ground for getting skin in the game, for creating things, making outfits, making resources, making websites. And I think if you have skin in the game, it comes with some kind of implied accountability for your actions and your words. I think it's instrumental and useful. I think there's something about it that really works. Rapid, you hear less wow, that was sick, and more get shit on kid. Everyone teabags in their FPS games every round. It's tiring. I don't know. I think that problem exists, but I think it probably exists in more of a niche than the broader gaming community, from my perception. Daddy, I've started complimenting people when they kill you nicely, actually. It's actually bad. You shouldn't talk to them at all. Teabagging's gotten worse with the kill cam. I like teabagging. It motivates me to get revenge. But then again, I'm weird. It'd be nice if you could hit a button that makes the character say, nice shot, voice line to your killer. Yeah. Actually, I have besides trolling me for channel points, besides trolling me for gift subs with word bans, you can also spend channel points when I'm playing Planetside to get me to compliment my killer. It's an idea I stole from Aflick. Hey, QWeb, how's it going? I think that people receiving unexpected compliments, I think people distrust it, actually. I sent a compliment to someone and they were like, hey, did I kill you by accident? Is everything okay? Because he thought I was being passive-aggressive or sarcastic. But no, I was like, nice shot, bro. Daddy got a few retells after telling someone he did something cool. Aren't we all weird somehow? Yeah, because the incentive-wise is like, that's a place where game design could get interesting, right? Like, what if when you were at the kill cam screen, if there was a bind you could press to give someone a compliment, right? And what if there was a way to have the player who killed you get a neat little payoff in the game? Like, oh, nice shot, nice kill, or whatever. Even like rage. Like if you could press a rage button, let your player know you're raging. You can build some of those things into the game to create new interactions. I don't know. It would take the pressure off the whisper system for communicating. Maybe. Nice shot be translated into toxic, just like how it happens in Rocket League. Yeah, but I don't like. Hearthstone did this, right? Hearthstone removed the good game emote because people were using it toxically. I think that the whole idea of protecting gamers from themselves is a flawed and futile notion. It is necessary if you have a certain kind of game. But fortunately, I'm not a game designer, so I don't have to deal with it. When commenting has gotten to the point that's assumed to be ironic, it's indicative of an issue. Well, we need to flip the culture, Rapid. We need to flip the culture. You know what? I'm going to make a little covenant with myself. Where whenever I play Planetside, between now and the next time y'all see me on the stream, or who am I kidding? I'll be streaming if I'm playing Planetside. But I'm gonna try to send some positive tells to people. I'm gonna try to find ways to compliment people in Planetside. I'm gonna surprise this community. We can get this ball rolling, y'all. Let people know they've done something really cool. Thank you for the heal. Thank you for the revive. Hey, nice shot. Nice headshots. That quad dink was really great. You're really great at Max. Careful with that one. And you know what? People will take us sarcastically at first, and that's okay. But you got to give it time. We need to trust the process. Be the change, y'all. We can bring positivity to this. I don't want to say the word community now because I'm so like, I don't know. I'm like twice burned, thrice shy on it. Like Clash Royale emotes. How's that work, Star-Lord? I'm not familiar. Adding a rage button would make people not send insulting rage tells. I don't know. There's got to be a way to like have fun with that reality in Planetside, right? I don't know what it would be. Hey man, great teabag. Exactly. That's a great one to send. I would totally send that tell to someone. Nice form on the teabag. Great cadence on the crouch. It's just poetic. A poetry of movement. Nice taint, bro. Wonder if RPG would be okay with a plug-in the automated nice shot tell. Well, you know, like I look at like a framework like recursion, and they could add a layer to it somehow. Where, yeah, no, that adds so much infrastructure, though. I'm sure you wouldn't want to do that. It would be a big application to do that. But I mean, if all you're doing is scraping data from the APIs, which is what all recursion does, then how can they stop it? And players could opt into being communicated with. I don't know. It's a neat idea. How would you make a nice shot tell bot? The thing is, though, I think we shouldn't bot it. I think we should take the time to type out these nice ideas. It makes it more real. It's like when you receive the handwritten letter in the mail versus when someone texts you. You know, a real act of love. A real act of love for the Planetside community. Making that spandex look good. Exactly. Live while you're playing, they have short, funny emotes that play. Hard to explain. Have to check it out. Chris Stone. Thing is, you die so much, you would get banned for complimenting people for natural functions of the game. A strange and interesting idea, no less. Yeah, I mean, it could have legs. I mean, you don't have to do it every time you die. I die a lot too. I'm not sure if I have the patience to do it every time. But pick your moments. Maybe set a goal, like 1 per hour. Assault uses a script to auto V6s whenever they get a kill. Is that true? I mean, I guess I respect the effort. Why though? Exactly. Why though? Their whole platoon V6 is when they kill a specific person. Have y'all seen Schachter's YouTube video where he was dealing with stream snipers and he invited everyone to bop him with galaxies when he was in his harasser? Sometimes I wonder if when it comes to some of these small bad behaviors in the community, if there's an aspect of like, I don't know. I don't know, y'all. It's like my brain is slowing down. You ever have like a good friend, especially like a male friend, where you like joke at each other's expense, you talk shit to each other, but it's kind of how you communicate your love and appreciation for each other. It's a phenomenon where your ability to take a joke, your ability to deal with this kind of negativity, confers status within a group. I know it happens with me and my friends, like. And people who can't take a joke lose status in the group if they get offended by these small things. I think there's an aspect of that sometimes to some of the bad behavior we see in gaming. But I also think that when you systematize that, it can get pretty bad. That salt thing was really surprising and disappointing. I mean, there are boundaries to it. And the thing about that kind of stuff is... I don't know. I'm not sure if anything else I want to say about it. Rapid, there's a funny stream sniping and there's unfunny stream sniping. It depends on if you want to play the game normally or not. My impression of that situation, Rapid, is that he turned unfunny stream sniping into funny stream sniping. He became okay with the joke. He consented to it after the fact. It was interesting. Guys do it because it's a guy thing to bury your emotions. It's not healthy. Trash talk is a place in competitive gaming can enhance the experience. Scripted toxicity does not. Yeah, there's a line. There's a line, for sure. All right. Speaking of lines. I think we've wrung out most of the juice from this conversation. All about toxicity. As always, I've excused myself from coming up with any answers by saying I'm trying to create a discussion. Speaking about no, let's not talk about that. That's for later. So here's the deal. This is a program I call Deeg Thoughts. For any of y'all who are just getting to know me, I do it every Monday night, where I show up and talk about something that interests me. And if you like it and you haven't, throw me a follow. These also appear on my YouTube channel after the fact, and they're nicely chaptered out so you can browse around and find what you care about. So have a look at that if it interests you. What else? Ooh, let's honor Zugi's long paragraph. Let's honor it. And just because I love y'all, I'm going to channel the voice of Rel one more time. People are generally somewhat competitive and losing. They don't like... Many people just resort to belittling of others because that's the only route they have left. or belittling to elevate themselves. Online gaming is a way for people to release their built-up issues, and unfortunately, that's other people many times. Incoming pain and suffering. I love you guys. I love you guys and gals. I'm going to be back on Thursday night, and I'm going to be interviewing a member of the Planetside community who is considered toxic by many. His name is Lex. And it's going to be a very fun conversation. It's going to happen at the same time this started, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday. Come on out, y'all. Come on out. Lex and I are going to hash it out. I'm sure it'll be a very entertaining conversation. Did I say something else? Probably not. Yeah. Good game, everyone. Thanks for jumping in. And if you contributed to the conversation, thank you for doing that. I love hearing all your voices. And if all you did was listen and think about it, thank you for that too. The important thing is that everyone has a good time, enjoys the discussion. And if you can learn something, that's great. I learned something. And I'm going to work more on my Rel impression for next time. Y'all take care and have just a fantastic evening out there. And don't forget to compliment your fellow planet mans and planet womens out there on Araxis. Good night.